Daniel Wright stood frozen in the conference room doorway, watching his career unravel in real time. The VP of Engineering was reading from what looked like an HR complaint, and every eye in that room was fixed on him with the kind of judgment that comes before the facts. Inappropriate relationship with a direct report, abuse of authority, compromised professional boundaries. The words hit like hammers, each one designed to destroy what he'd spent years building. But the worst part wasn't the accusation, it was knowing that the woman he'd tried so hard to protect, the one he'd kept at arm's length out of respect and caution, was about to walk through that same door and face the same firing squad. All because of one stormy night when he'd offered a ride home. If you want to see how one act of kindness became a battleground for truth, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. The rain started at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon, which meant Daniel Wright had exactly 90 minutes to finish his code deployment before the systems locked down for the weekend. He sat in his corner of the open plan office on the 7th floor of the Cascade Tech building in downtown Portland, fingers moving across his keyboard with the kind of focused rhythm that came from 12 years of writing software. Around him, the office had already started its weekly exodus, engineers packing laptops, designers shutting down dual monitors, project managers making their escape before anyone could rope them into emergency meetings. Daniel barely noticed. His daughter Emma wouldn't be back from his ex-wife's until Sunday night, which meant he had the rare luxury of staying late without guilt gnawing at his conscience. The deployment was clean, elegant even, and he wanted to see it through properly. At 32, he'd learned that the difference between good work and great work usually came down to those extra 30 minutes most people weren't willing to give. "You're still here?" The voice came from behind him, warm with a hint of surprise. Daniel turned to find Maya Collins standing by his desk, messenger bag slung over one shoulder, hair pulled back in the same efficient ponytail she wore most days. She was 26, brilliant in the way that made senior engineers nervous, and had risen to team lead faster than anyone else in the company's history. Daniel had worked under her direction for 8 months now, and in that time he'd developed a careful respect for her capabilities and an equally careful distance from anything that might complicate their professional relationship. "Finishing the authentication module," Daniel said, gesturing at his screen. "Didn't want it hanging over the weekend." Maya leaned in slightly, scanning the code with the kind of quick comprehension that had earned her the position she held. "Clean implementation. You're using the new security protocols?" "All of them. Figured if we're going to do it, might as well do it right." She smiled, the kind of genuine expression that made her popular with the team, despite her youth and authority. "That's why your code never comes back with issues. You actually think about edge cases." Daniel felt the compliment settle uncomfortably. He'd learned to be cautious about praise from Maya, not because it wasn't earned, but because others had started noticing how often she singled out his work. Office dynamics were delicate things, especially when you were a single father trying to keep your head down and your paycheck steady. "Just doing the job," he said, keeping his tone neutral. "You heading out?" Maya's expression shifted, frustration flickering across her features. "Trying to. My car's making a sound like a dying animal. I called a rideshare, but with this weather..." She gestured toward the windows, where rain now hammered against the glass with escalating intensity. Daniel glanced at the storm, then back at his screen. The deployment would take another 20 minutes, maybe 30. "I can give you a ride if you want to wait. I'm almost done here." The offer came out before he'd fully thought it through, which wasn't like him. Daniel had spent the last 3 years since his divorce building careful boundaries around every interaction, especially with women at work. But Maya was his team lead. This was just a ride home in bad weather, and refusing to help because of optics felt worse than offering basic human decency. "You sure?" Maya asked, and he could hear the relief in her voice. "I'm over in the Pearl District. Not too far out of your way? I'm in Northwest. It's fine." "Then yes, thank you. I'll wait in the lobby. Take your time with the deployment." She left, and Daniel returned to his work, trying not to think about how this simple act of courtesy was exactly the kind of thing that fed office gossip. He'd seen it happen to others, innocent interactions twisted into something salacious by people with too much time and too little actual work to occupy them. But it was raining, Maya needed a ride, and refusing to help would make him exactly the kind of person he'd promised himself he'd never become. The deployment finished without issues. Daniel shut down his workstation, grabbed his jacket, and headed for the elevator. The building was nearly empty now, just the hum of HVAC systems and the distant sound of a cleaning crew working the upper floors. When he reached the lobby, he found Maya standing by the windows, watching the storm with an expression that looked almost peaceful. "Ready?" he asked. She turned, shouldering her bag. "Let's run for it." They pushed through the doors into weather that had gone from heavy rain to full downpour. The parking garage was across a small plaza, and by the time they reached Daniel's car, a practical 6-year-old Subaru that had survived countless grocery runs and Emma's soccer practices, they were both soaked. "Christ," Maya laughed, sliding into the passenger seat and pushing wet hair out of her face. "I forgot what Portland storms were like." Daniel started the engine, cranking up the heat. "You're not from here originally?" "Bay Area, moved up 3 years ago for the job market." She pulled her seatbelt across. "You're native?" "Born and raised. Never really saw a reason to leave." He pulled out of the garage, windshield wipers working overtime against the deluge. They fell into easy conversation as Daniel navigated the downtown streets, which had transformed into rivers of brake lights and frustrated commuters. Maya asked about his background. Turned out they'd both started in computer science at state schools, both taken the long route through community college first. She talked about her path to management, the balance between staying technical and leading people. Daniel found himself relaxing, the careful distance he usually maintained softening into something more genuine. "You have kids, right?" Maya asked as they waited at a red light. "I think I remember you mentioning a daughter." "Emma, she's 7, stays with me most weeks, but this weekend she's with her mom." "That must be hard. The split custody thing." Daniel kept his eyes on the road. "It's what works for Emma. That's what matters." Maya nodded, letting the subject drop with the kind of intuition that made her good at managing people. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, rain drumming on the roof, the city lights blurred and dreamy through the windshield. When they reached the Pearl District, Maya directed him to a newer building on a quiet street. Daniel pulled up to the curb and Maya unbuckled but didn't immediately move to leave. "Thank you for this," she said. "I know it was out of your way." "It wasn't, and you're welcome." She hesitated, then, "This is going to sound forward, but I have food and you're soaked. Let me at least make you dinner before you drive back. It's the least I can do." Every instinct Daniel had developed over 3 years of careful living screamed at him to decline politely and go home. This was his team lead. This was how innocent situations got complicated. This was exactly what he'd promised himself he'd avoid. But the rain was getting worse, visibility dropping by the minute. The thought of driving back across town in this weather held no appeal. And Maya was right. He was soaked, hungry, and the offer was just dinner. 2 colleagues sharing a meal after a long week. Nothing more complicated than that. "Sure," he heard himself say. "That'd be great." They ran through the rain to the building entrance, shoes squelching on polished floors as they crossed the lobby to the elevator. Maya's apartment was on the 5th floor, a clean, modern space with large windows overlooking the city. She immediately disappeared into the bedroom, returning in dry clothes with a towel and a spare shirt for Daniel. "Bathroom's down the hall if you want to change." When Daniel emerged, Maya had already started pulling ingredients from the refrigerator, vegetables, pasta, what looked like homemade sauce in a glass container. "I usually cook on Sundays," she explained, firing up the stove. "Meal prep for the week, but I made extra. Hope you like pasta." "Pasta's perfect." They fell into an easy rhythm, Maya at the stove, Daniel chopping vegetables at her direction. The apartment filled with the smell of garlic and herbs, and through the windows, the storm continued its assault on the city. They talked about work at first. Upcoming projects, team dynamics, the new VP who seemed determined to restructure everything that didn't need restructuring. But gradually the conversation drifted elsewhere. Maya told him about growing up in San Jose, the pressure to go into tech because everyone in her family worked in tech, the relief of finding out she actually loved it. Daniel talked about Emma, the careful dance of co-parenting, the fear that he was somehow failing her by not providing the intact family she deserved. "You're not failing her," Maya said firmly, draining pasta at the sink. Trust me, I grew up with parents who stayed together for the kids. It was miserable. Emma's better off with two parents who are apart and functional than together and toxic. That's what the therapist says. The therapist is right. They ate at her small dining table, the storm creating a strange intimacy. Two people sealed away from the world, sharing food and stories in the warm glow of her apartment. Daniel found himself talking more than he had in months, maybe years. There was something about Maya's directness, her lack of judgment, that made conversation feel safe. After dinner, they moved to the couch with coffee, and the conversation turned to books, movies, the small cultural touchstones that revealed character. Maya confessed to an addiction to terrible reality TV. Daniel admitted he still played video games after Emma went to bed, the same franchises he'd loved at 15. I knew there was something suspicious about you, Maya teased. You're too well adjusted. Everyone has a vice. That's mine. Late-night gaming sessions and energy drinks. Very responsible. She laughed, and Daniel realized how rarely he heard that sound at work, where Maya wore her authority like armor against any suggestion that she was too young for her position. Here, in her own space, she was just herself, sharp and funny, and surprisingly easy to be around. Around 10, Daniel checked his phone and saw 3 missed messages from his buddy Chris, probably wondering if he wanted to grab a beer. The storm hadn't let up at all. If anything, it had intensified. Maya noticed him looking at the window. It's really coming down out there. Yeah. You're welcome to wait it out, or... She paused, choosing her words carefully. The couch pulls out. If you'd rather not drive in this, you can stay. I promise it's not weird, just practical. Daniel should have said no. Every rational part of his brain knew that staying overnight at his team lead's apartment, even on a pull-out couch, even in a storm, was crossing a line that would be hard to uncross. But the alternative was driving through near-zero visibility, risking an accident, all to preserve optics that might already be complicated just by his being here at all. The couch would be great, he said, if you're sure. I'm sure. Let me get you some blankets. Maya set him up with sheets, a pillow, and a spare blanket that smelled like lavender detergent. The couch was surprisingly comfortable, the apartment quiet except for the storm. Daniel lay there in the dark, very aware that Maya was just down the hall, that this situation could be misread in a dozen different ways by anyone who knew about it. But nothing had happened. Nothing was going to happen. They were just 2 colleagues who'd shared dinner and gotten stranded by weather. That was all. That's what he told himself as he drifted off to sleep, rain still hammering against the windows, the storm showing no signs of stopping. He woke to pale morning light and the smell of coffee. Maya was already up, dressed in weekend casual, moving quietly around the kitchen. When she saw him stirring, she smiled. Morning. Coffee's fresh if you want some. Daniel sat up, running a hand through his hair. What time is it? Just after 7. Storm finally passed about an hour ago. She poured 2 mugs, brought one over. How'd you sleep? Better than I expected. He accepted the coffee, grateful. Thanks again for letting me crash. Better than you hydroplaning on the freeway. She settled into the chair across from him. You hungry? I can make eggs. You don't have to... I'm making them anyway. Scrambled, okay? They had breakfast together, the morning light soft through the windows, the city quiet and washed clean by the storm. It felt remarkably normal, like something they'd done 100 times before. Daniel found himself relaxed in a way that surprised him. The usual tension he carried, the constant calculation of how to be, how to act, how to avoid complications. Temporarily absent. After breakfast, he helped Maya clean up, then gathered his things. At the door, there was a moment of awkwardness, the kind that comes when you're not quite sure how to acknowledge that something has shifted, even if you can't name what or how. I'll see you Monday, Maya said. Monday, Daniel confirmed. He drove home through quiet streets, the storm's aftermath evident in scattered branches and small floods at intersections. His apartment felt emptier than usual when he let himself in, the silence more pronounced. He spent the rest of the weekend doing laundry, catching up on household tasks, and trying not to think too much about how easy it had been to talk to Maya, how natural it had felt to be in her space. Monday morning arrived with the usual chaos. Emma's return Sunday night had been full of stories about her weekend, breakfast had run late, and Daniel barely made it to the office by 9. The 7th floor was its typical hive of activity. Engineers huddled in conference rooms, the constant clack of keyboards, the smell of coffee and ambition. Daniel had barely settled at his desk when he noticed the looks. Subtle at first, a glance held too long, a conversation that stopped when he walked by. He tried to ignore it, diving into his email, but the feeling persisted. Something had changed in the office atmosphere, and it centered on him. At 10, Maya held her usual Monday team sync. Daniel filed in with the rest of the engineers, taking his customary seat near the back. The meeting covered the standard topics: weekend deployment results, upcoming sprint planning, roadmap priorities. But there was an undercurrent Daniel couldn't quite name, a tension in how people looked between him and Maya, knowing glances that suggested some shared joke he wasn't part of. After the meeting, he pulled his friend Marcus aside in the hallway. They'd started at the company around the same time, had families the same age, had bonded over the particular challenges of balancing engineering work with being present fathers. "What's going on?" Daniel asked quietly. "I'm getting weird vibes." Marcus looked uncomfortable, the kind of expression that meant he had information he didn't want to share. "You really don't know?" "Know what?" "People are saying," Marcus dropped his voice even lower, "they're saying you spent Friday night at Maya's place." The words hit Daniel like cold water. "Who's saying that?" "Everyone. It's all over the unofficial channels. Someone saw you leave together Friday, and then you were seen leaving her building Saturday morning. The story is you two are—" But he trailed off, the implication clear. Daniel felt his stomach drop. "It's not what it sounds like." "I'm not judging, man. But you know how this place is. Maya's the youngest team lead in company history, and now people are saying the only reason you get the good projects is because you're sleeping with her. That's bullshit. Nothing happened. There was a storm. She needed a ride. I stayed on her couch. That's it." Marcus held up his hands. "Hey, I believe you, but belief isn't the issue here. Perception is. And right now the perception is that Maya's playing favorites and you're benefiting from it. This is insane. Welcome to corporate politics. Look, my advice, keep your head down, do your work, and let it blow over. These things usually do." But it didn't blow over. Over the next week, the whispers grew louder. Daniel caught people looking at him in meetings, saw messages in Slack channels that stopped the moment he joined the conversation. Someone had created a poll, buried in a thread he wasn't supposed to see, asking how long before HR got involved. The votes were split between already investigating and waiting for someone to complain. The worst part was watching what it did to Maya. She'd worked for years to build credibility, to prove that her promotion was earned through skill and results, not favoritism or luck. Now that credibility was being questioned, every decision she made scrutinized through the lens of the rumor. When she assigned Daniel to a high-visibility project, people assumed it was preferential treatment. When she gave feedback to another engineer, they wondered if she was harder on them because they weren't sleeping with her. Daniel tried to talk to her once, catching her after a meeting in the empty conference room. "We should address this," he said. "The rumors. Maybe if we just explain what actually happened." Maya cut him off, her expression harder than he'd ever seen it. "Explain what, Daniel? That we had dinner? That you stayed over in a storm? You think people care about the truth when the rumor is more interesting? So we just let them think what they're going to think anyway. The more we protest, the guiltier we look. Trust me on this. I've been managing perception since I was 23. The best thing we can do is be professional, deliver results, and let our work speak for itself." She left, and Daniel stood there feeling helpless. This was exactly what he'd feared, the complication he'd tried so hard to avoid. One night of ordinary human kindness had turned into a narrative he couldn't control, couldn't fight, couldn't escape. By the second week, the situation had escalated. In a sprint planning meeting, another engineer, Kevin, who'd been with the company for 6 years and clearly resented Maya's rise, made a pointed comment about how some people got better project assignments through creative networking. The room went silent. Maya's expression didn't change, but Daniel saw her jaw tighten, the smallest tell that she'd registered the hit. If you have concerns about project allocation, Maya said evenly, my door is always open for a professional discussion. I'm just saying, Kevin continued, emboldened by the audience, it seems like certain people get preferential treatment. Makes the rest of us wonder what we're doing wrong, or maybe what we're not doing after hours. Daniel felt something snap inside him. He'd spent 2 weeks keeping his head down, following Marcus's advice, letting it blow over. But it wasn't blowing over, it was getting worse, and now it wasn't just affecting him. It was undermining Maya's authority, her competence, everything she'd worked to build. That's enough. His voice came out harder than he'd intended, cutting through the room's tension. Kevin turned to him, eyebrows raised. Excuse me? You have something to say about project allocation. Say it directly. But don't hide behind insinuation and gossip like a coward. I'm not the one. Yes, you are. You and half this office have spent 2 weeks turning a ride home in a storm into some kind of scandal. Maya offered me dinner and a couch because the weather was dangerous. That's it. Nothing else happened. But even if something had, her professional decisions are based on merit, which you'd know if you spent half as much energy on your actual work as you do on office politics. The conference room had gone completely silent. Kevin's face had turned red. Whether from anger or embarrassment, Daniel couldn't tell. Maya was looking at him with an expression he couldn't read. We done here? Daniel asked, addressing the whole room now. Because I have actual work to do. He walked out, heart pounding, knowing he'd just made everything worse but unable to regret it. Some lines needed to be drawn. Some battles needed to be fought, regardless of the consequences. The consequences came faster than expected. An hour later, Daniel received a calendar invitation, meeting with Sarah Chen, VP of Engineering, and someone from HR. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. No other details. He stared at the invitation, stomach sinking. This was it. The formal investigation, the official response to rumors that had spiraled out of control. His defense of Maya, however justified it felt in the moment, had probably just accelerated the process. That evening, Daniel picked up Emma from after-school care, listened to her chatter about playground drama and math homework, made dinner, supervised bath time, read 3 chapters of the book they were working through together. The routine was grounding, a reminder of what actually mattered. Whatever happened at work, however this situation resolved, he still had this, the small, vital world of being Emma's father. After she was asleep, he sat in his living room with a beer he didn't really want and tried to figure out his next move. He could apologize, walk back his defense of Maya, try to salvage his reputation by throwing her under the bus, but the thought made him sick. Maya hadn't done anything wrong, neither had he. The fact that simple human decency had been twisted into something ugly said more about the office culture than it did about either of them. His phone buzzed. A message from Maya. Heard about your meeting tomorrow. Mine's at 3. Want to compare notes after? Daniel typed back, Sure. Then, after a moment, I'm sorry about what I said in the meeting. Probably made things worse. Her response came quickly. You stood up for both of us. That took courage. Whatever happens tomorrow, thank you for that. Daniel read the message twice, feeling something shift in his chest. For 2 weeks, he'd been trying to navigate this situation alone, keeping distance from Maya to avoid feeding the rumors, accepting isolation as the price of prudence. But maybe that was the wrong approach. Maybe the answer wasn't to retreat from the connection they'd formed, but to face it honestly, whatever that meant. Tuesday arrived with the weight of impending confrontation. Daniel went through the morning motions, stand-up meeting, code review, the usual rhythm of engineering work, while watching the clock crawl toward 2 p.m. At 1:30, he grabbed a coffee he didn't need just to have something to do with his hands. The conference room was on the 8th floor, in the executive section Daniel rarely visited. Sarah Chen was already there when he arrived, along with Monica Rivera from HR. Both wore expressions of professional neutrality that gave nothing away. Daniel, thanks for making time, Sarah began, gesturing to a chair. I'm sure you have some idea why we asked you here. I can guess. There have been concerns raised about your relationship with Maya Collins. Given that she's your team lead, we need to understand the nature of that relationship and ensure we're maintaining appropriate professional boundaries. Daniel took a breath, choosing his words carefully. Maya gave me a ride home turned into me giving her a ride home during the storm 2 weeks ago. The weather got bad. She offered dinner. I accepted. When it became clear that driving was dangerous, she offered her couch. I slept there, left the next morning. That's the full extent of what happened. Monica made notes on her tablet. And since then? Since then, we've maintained a professional relationship. She's my team lead. I respect her leadership. The rumors circulating are exactly that, rumors based on a situation people have chosen to misinterpret. Sarah leaned forward slightly. Here's our concern, Daniel. Perception matters in a workplace. Whether or not anything inappropriate happened, the appearance of impropriety can be just as damaging to team morale and trust. Several people have expressed discomfort with what they perceive as favoritism in project allocation. That perception is wrong. Maya assigns projects based on skills and capacity. If people have issues with her decisions, they should raise them professionally, not hide behind gossip. We understand you defended Maya publicly in a meeting yesterday. Can you walk us through what happened there? Daniel recounted the sprint planning meeting, Kevin's comments, his own response. As he spoke, he watched Sarah's and Monica's reactions, trying to gauge whether he was helping or hurting his case. When he finished, Sarah was quiet for a moment. Then, I appreciate your honesty, Daniel. Here's what's going to happen. We're conducting these conversations with everyone involved to get a complete picture. In the meantime, we'd like you to maintain appropriate professional distance from Maya. That means work communication only, no social interaction, no situations that could be misinterpreted. So we're being punished for something that didn't happen. You're being asked to help us restore trust in the team structure. That's different. Daniel wanted to argue, to point out the injustice of being sanctioned for rumors and perception rather than actual wrongdoing. But he also understood corporate reality. HR wasn't interested in truth. They were interested in liability management and appearance control. Understood, he said. One more thing, Monica added. We'll be monitoring project allocation going forward to ensure equity across the team. Maya will be asked to document her decision-making process for assignments. This is standard procedure in situations like this. The meeting ended, and Daniel left feeling like he'd been through a deposition for a crime he didn't commit. He went back to his desk, tried to focus on work, and failed completely. At 3:15, his phone buzzed. Maya. My turn. Wish me luck. Daniel. Good luck. He didn't hear from her again until after 5 when she appeared at his desk, expression carefully neutral. Walk? She asked quietly. They took the elevator down without speaking, emerged into the parking garage where their cars were the only witnesses. Only then did Maya's composure crack slightly. They're restructuring my team, she said, moving you and 2 others to a different group, reporting to Kevin. They called it rebalancing workload, but we both know what it actually is. Daniel felt anger rise in his chest. That's bullshit. You're being punished for managing well. I'm being punished for being young and female and having the audacity to treat a male colleague like a human being. Maya's voice was tight. They asked me if there was any truth to the rumors. I told them the same thing you did. Then they suggested maybe I should be more careful about how my actions might be perceived. More careful. As if I haven't spent my entire career being more careful than any man would ever have to be. We should fight this. File a complaint, talk to legal, and say what? That I'm being retaliated against for rumors? They'll say they're protecting team dynamics. They'll say it's about perception and trust. We can't win this, Daniel. The system isn't designed to let us win. They stood there in the concrete dimness of the parking garage, 2 people whose lives had been upended by a single act of ordinary kindness, twisted into something ugly by other people's assumptions and biases. I'm sorry, Daniel said finally. This is my fault. I should have just driven home that night. Maya looked at him, something fierce in her expression. Don't apologize for being decent. That's what they want, for us to feel guilty about nothing, to internalize their bullshit. We didn't do anything wrong. Then why does it feel like we're losing? Because sometimes the right thing and the winning thing aren't the same. She pulled her keys from her bag. I need to go. I'll see you around, I guess. Maya. But she was already walking away, heels clicking on concrete, leaving Daniel alone with his anger and frustration and the growing certainty that something fundamental had broken that couldn't be easily fixed. That night, after Emma was asleep, Daniel sat at his laptop and did something he'd been avoiding. He updated his resume. Not because he wanted to leave, but because he needed to know he had options. The company had made its choice: protect perception over people, comfort over truth. He didn't know if he could keep working in a place that operated that way. His phone buzzed. A message from Maya, just 3 words. "Thank you for everything." Daniel stared at those words, feeling the weight of everything unsaid behind them. The connection they'd formed over dinner and conversation. The easy companionship that had felt so natural. The potential for something neither of them had named, but both had recognized, now crushed under the machinery of corporate politics and other people's assumptions. He typed back, "Nothing to thank me for. You deserve better than this." Her response came after a long pause. "So did you." And that was where part 1 ended. Not with resolution or victory, but with 2 people standing in the wreckage of what should have been simple, forced to reckon with a system that punished authenticity and rewarded suspicion, knowing the real battle was just beginning. The restructuring took effect the following Monday. Daniel arrived at work to find his desk had been physically moved. Not far, just 2 rows over, but far enough to make the point. His new manager, Kevin, sat in the adjacent pod, already holding court with the other transferred engineers, explaining his vision for how the team would operate under his leadership. Daniel unpacked his laptop and monitors in silence, hyper-aware of the eyes tracking his movements. The message was clear: step out of line, challenge authority, and this is what happens. You get demoted without the formal demotion, punished without official punishment, made an example of in ways that leave no paper trail for HR to worry about. "Morning, Daniel." Kevin appeared beside his new desk, coffee in hand, expression professionally pleasant in a way that didn't reach his eyes. "Got you set up okay?" "Fine." Good. Listen, I want to establish some ground rules for how we work together. I run a tight ship, clear expectations, regular check-ins, transparent communication. I think you'll find it's a much more structured environment than what you're used to." The implication hung in the air like smoke. What you're used to, meaning Maya's leadership, meaning the supposed favoritism, meaning everything the rumors had twisted into something dirty. "I'm sure I'll adapt," Daniel said evenly. "Great. We've got team sync at 9. Don't be late." Kevin walked away, and Daniel booted up his computer, trying to ignore the knot of anger in his chest. Across the office, he could see Maya's desk, her workspace unchanged but somehow diminished. She was on a call, headphones on, and didn't look his way. They hadn't spoken since the parking garage conversation 4 days ago. The directive to maintain professional distance meant they couldn't even exchange casual greetings without feeding more speculation. The 9 a.m. meeting was exactly what Daniel expected. Kevin establishing dominance, laying out processes that were mostly identical to Maya's but presented as revolutionary improvements, making it clear that things would be different now. Better. More professional. The subtext was exhausting. At his old desk 2 rows over, Maya held her own reduced team meeting. Daniel could hear her voice occasionally, that same clear authority she'd always had, now directing a smaller group on projects that had been quietly downgraded in priority. The company was systematically dismantling what she'd built, and there was nothing either of them could do about it. The morning crawled past. Daniel worked on a legacy code refactor. Important work, but nowhere near the visibility of the projects he'd been handling before. It was the kind of assignment you gave to someone you were parking, not developing. Around 11, Marcus stopped by his desk. "How's the new setup treating you?" "About as well as you'd expect." Marcus lowered his voice. "For what it's worth, most people think this whole thing is bullshit. Kevin's on a power trip, and everyone knows it. Knowing it and doing something about it are different things." "True." Marcus glanced around, then leaned in closer. "Look, I probably shouldn't tell you this, but there's talk that Maya's being considered for a position at the Seattle office. Lateral move, same title, but it gets her out of this situation." Daniel felt his stomach drop. They're forcing her out. They're giving her an exit that saves face for everyone. She gets to avoid the continued scrutiny, company gets to resolve the situation without admitting fault. Marcus straightened up as someone walked past. "Just thought you should know. In case you wanted to, I don't know. Say something before she makes a decision." After Marcus left, Daniel sat staring at his screen without seeing it. Maya leaving would solve the company's problem neatly. The source of controversy removed, team dynamics restored, everyone free to move on and pretend this had never happened. But it would also mean the rumors had won, that speaking up had consequences for the person with the least protection, that doing the right thing was less important than preserving comfortable lies. He pulled up his chat window, typed, "Can we talk?" then deleted it. What was there to say that wouldn't make things worse? They were already forbidden from normal interaction, already being watched for any sign of the relationship everyone had decided existed. Reaching out now would just confirm suspicions, give the office gossips more ammunition. But the thought of Maya leaving because of this, because of him, was intolerable. At lunch, Daniel took his sandwich to the courtyard outside the building, needing air and distance from the careful choreography of the office. He'd barely sat down when his phone rang, an unknown number. "Hello? Daniel Wright?" The voice was female, professional, unfamiliar. "Yes? This is Jennifer Martinez from TechBridge Solutions. I hope this isn't a bad time. I got your information from a mutual connection who thought you might be interested in exploring opportunities with our company." Daniel's mind raced. He hadn't sent his resume anywhere yet, had barely updated it. "I'm not sure who—" "I can't disclose the referral source, but they spoke very highly of your technical skills and leadership qualities. We're expanding our Portland office and looking for senior engineers who can grow into team lead positions. Would you be open to a conversation?" It took Daniel a moment to understand what was happening. Someone had submitted his name, someone who knew he might be looking for a way out. Marcus? Maybe. Or someone else who'd witnessed the restructuring and wanted to help quietly, without direct involvement. "I'd be open to hearing more," Daniel said carefully. "Excellent. How's Thursday at 2? We're just across the river in the Lloyd district. I'll send you a calendar invite with the address." The call ended, and Daniel sat there with his half-eaten sandwich, trying to process. An opportunity had just appeared exactly when he needed it, offered by someone who knew enough about his situation to understand why he might want to leave. The universe, it seemed, was providing an exit. But did he want one? The afternoon brought a different kind of complication. Sarah Chen, the VP who'd overseen his HR interview, stopped by his new desk with a tablet and a request. "Daniel, quick question. I'm reviewing the work you did on the authentication module last month. Can you walk me through your implementation choices?" It was a technical question, straightforward on the surface. But Daniel had been in corporate environments long enough to recognize a test when he saw one. Sarah wanted to know if the quality of his work matched the reputation, if Maya's praise had been earned or given for other reasons. He walked her through the code architecture, explaining security protocols, edge case handling, the decision-making process that had led to each implementation choice. Sarah asked sharp questions, the kind that came from actual technical understanding, and Daniel answered them thoroughly. When they finished, she nodded slowly. "This is solid work, really solid. Thank you. I wanted to see it for myself. There's been some question about project allocation methodology, and I needed to understand the baseline we're working from." She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "For what it's worth, your technical capabilities are clearly strong. I hope you know that whatever organizational changes we make are about team structure, not about your value to the company." After she left, Daniel felt a mix of validation and anger. He'd just been audited, his work quality questioned because of rumors, his competence up for review because someone had decided the praise he'd received must have come from somewhere other than merit. It was degrading, insulting, and exactly the kind of thing Maya had probably been dealing with her entire career. He glanced across the office toward her desk and found her looking back. Their eyes met for just a second before she quickly looked away, but in that brief moment, Daniel saw exhaustion and something that looked like defeat. Maya Collins, who'd fought her way to team lead before she was 25, who'd never backed down from a technical challenge or a difficult conversation, was breaking under the weight of sustained scrutiny and isolation. That evening, Daniel picked up Emma and took her for ice cream, their usual Wednesday tradition. She talked about school, about the science project she was planning, about how her friend Sophia's parents were getting divorced, and how sad Sophia seemed about it. "Is Sophia okay?" Daniel asked, helping her with a dripping cone. "I think so. She said it's weird having two houses now, but she also said at least her parents don't fight anymore." Emma looked up at him with her mother's eyes. You and Mom don't fight either. I'm glad you're not mad at each other. We're not, sweetie. We just work better as friends than as married people. That's what you always say. She licked chocolate from her fingers. Do you think you'll get married again? To someone new? The question caught Daniel off guard. I don't know. Maybe someday. Why do you ask? Emma shrugged. Sophia said her dad has a girlfriend already. I was just wondering if you did too. No girlfriend, Em. Just you and me for now. Good. I like it just us. She grinned. But if you did get a girlfriend, she'd have to be really nice. And she'd have to like science, and dogs, and ice cream. Daniel laughed despite himself. That's a pretty specific list. Those are the important things, Daddy. Driving home afterward, Daniel thought about Emma's criteria. Nice, liked science, liked ice cream. Maya fit all three, he realized, then immediately pushed the thought away. That wasn't where his mind should be going. The situation was complicated enough without adding actual romantic feelings to the mix. But the thought lingered as he helped Emma with homework, as he made dinner, as he went through the evening routine. He'd spent 2 weeks telling everyone that nothing had happened between him and Maya, that the connection was purely professional. But sitting in the parking garage last week, watching her try not to crack under pressure she didn't deserve, he'd felt something that went beyond workplace respect or friendly concern. He'd felt protective, drawn to her, wanting to fix this for her in ways that had nothing to do with professional courtesy. And maybe that was the real problem. Maybe everyone else had seen something he'd been carefully not looking at. Maybe the rumors were wrong about what had happened, but right about what could have happened, given different circumstances and fewer complications. Thursday morning arrived with rain again, a lighter version of the storm that had started everything. Daniel drove to his interview at TechBridge Solutions, curious despite himself. The office was sleek and modern, the kind of place that spent money on standing desks and espresso machines, and signaled that they valued their employees. Jennifer Martinez was early 40s, sharp in the way good recruiters are, and she made her pitch efficiently. Senior engineer position, path to team lead within 18 months, competitive salary plus equity, better work-life balance than the larger tech companies. They were building something new, something lean, and they wanted people who could grow with the company rather than coast on established processes. Can I ask what's prompting you to explore options? Jennifer asked. Your current company has a good reputation. Daniel chose his words carefully. I've been there 5 years. I'm ready for new challenges and more growth opportunity. And there's no growth opportunity where you are? Let's say the environment has become less conducive to the kind of work I want to be doing. Jennifer nodded, not pressing further. She was good at reading between lines. Well, we'd love to bring you back for a technical interview with the team. How's next Tuesday? Tuesday works. Driving back to the office afterward, Daniel felt something unexpected. Hope. The possibility of starting fresh somewhere that didn't have preconceptions about him, where he could build a reputation on merit rather than defend against rumors. It was appealing in a way that surprised him. But leaving would also mean abandoning Maya to face the consequences alone. The thought sat uncomfortably. Back at his desk, Daniel found a calendar invitation waiting, one-on-one with Kevin, tomorrow at 3. No agenda listed. He accepted it with a sense of foreboding that proved justified when the meeting actually happened. Kevin's office was small, but deliberately staged. Awards on the wall, technical certifications, a bookshelf full of leadership titles that looked more decorative than read. He gestured for Daniel to sit, then settled behind his desk with the air of someone about to deliver difficult news. How are you settling into the new team structure? Fine, Daniel said neutrally. Good. I wanted to check in because I know transitions can be rough. Kevin leaned back in his chair. I also wanted to be transparent with you about expectations going forward. The projects you'll be working on might feel like a step back from what you were doing before, but I need to see your work quality firsthand before I can assign you to higher visibility initiatives. My work quality hasn't changed. I'm sure it hasn't, but there's been some concern about how project allocation was handled previously, and I need to establish my own baseline. He paused. I'm not saying anything inappropriate happened. I'm just saying perception matters, and part of restoring trust means demonstrating merit clearly and transparently. Daniel felt his jaw tighten. So I'm being punished for perception. You're being given an opportunity to prove yourself without any questions about favoritism. Think of it as a reset. A reset that involves doing junior-level work despite 5 years of experience and a track record of solid results. Kevin's expression hardened slightly. Your track record is exactly what's in question. I'm offering you a chance to rebuild credibility. I'd suggest you take it seriously. The meeting ended shortly after, and Daniel left feeling like he'd been warned. Play along, keep your head down, accept the demotion that wasn't officially a demotion, or face consequences that would be harder to recover from. He went back to his desk and immediately pulled up his email to Jennifer Martinez, confirming the Tuesday interview. Whatever loyalty he'd felt to the company was eroding fast. That weekend, Daniel took Emma to her soccer game, watched her score a goal that had her beaming with pride, and tried to be present in the moment rather than dwelling on work frustrations. Sunday evening, after Emma had gone to bed, he opened his laptop and found himself scrolling through LinkedIn, looking at Maya's profile not because he needed to, but because he wanted to know she was okay. Her status hadn't changed. No announcement about moving to Seattle, no indication she was job hunting. But there was a new recommendation from one of the senior engineers on her old team, praising her technical leadership and mentorship. A small act of professional defiance, publicly stating what the office politics wanted to erase. Daniel added his own recommendation. Brief, factual, focused entirely on her technical and leadership capabilities. It would probably fuel more speculation, but he was past caring about that. Maya deserved to have her competence acknowledged, even if the company was trying to push her out. Monday brought an unexpected development. Sarah Chen called an all-hands meeting for the engineering department, rare enough that people actually showed up on time. She stood at the front of the large conference room, waiting for everyone to settle before speaking. I want to address some concerns that have been brought to leadership's attention regarding team restructuring and project allocation. Over the past 3 weeks, we've made organizational changes that were intended to improve team balance and growth opportunities. However, we've also become aware that these changes may have created perceptions of unfairness or retaliation. The room was dead silent. Daniel saw Maya sitting near the back, expression carefully neutral. Sarah continued, "Effective immediately, we're implementing a more transparent project assignment process. All high-visibility projects will go through a review committee rather than individual team leads. We're also establishing clear criteria for promotions and leadership opportunities, with documentation requirements to ensure decisions are merit-based and equitable." It was corporate speak for, "We know we screwed up but won't admit it directly." The new processes would create more bureaucracy, more oversight, more documentation requirements, all because 2 people had shared dinner during a storm and other people had decided to make it something it wasn't. After the meeting, Daniel caught Maya in the hallway. They hadn't spoken directly in over a week, but he needed to know if she was okay. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey, yourself." She looked tired, the kind of exhaustion that came from sustained stress rather than lack of sleep. That meeting was something. That meeting was damage control. They're worried about liability now that it's obvious what they did. Maya glanced around, making sure they weren't overheard. "I got offered the Seattle position, officially. They want an answer by Friday." "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know. Part of me wants to stay and fight, prove I can't be pushed out. But another part is just tired, Daniel. Tired of being watched, tired of having every decision questioned, tired of feeling like I'm representing all women in tech every time I make a mistake or face criticism. You shouldn't have to leave because of this. Maybe not. But staying means more of this, more scrutiny, more whispers, more isolation. At least in Seattle, I'd get a fresh start." She met his eyes. "What about you? I heard you had an interview at TechBridge." Word travels fast. Office gossip is extremely efficient when it wants to be. A ghost of her usual humor flickered across her face. "Are you leaving?" "I have a second interview Tuesday. Don't know if I'll take it if they offer." They stood there in the hallway, 2 people whose lives had become unexpectedly entangled, trying to figure out how to navigate a situation neither had asked for but both were stuck in. "I saw your recommendation on LinkedIn," Maya said. "Thank you for that. Just stating facts. Facts that could make your situation more complicated." "I'm already complicated. Might as well be honest about it." Maya smiled, sad and genuine. "I wish we'd met in a different context. Different company, different circumstances. I think we could have been good friends. We still can be, after all this settles. You think it settles? Eventually. Nothing stays dramatic forever. That's optimistic of you. She checked her watch. I should get back. But Daniel, whatever you decide about TechBridge, do what's right for you and Emma. Don't stay out of some misplaced loyalty to me or this company. You deserve better than what you're getting here. She walked away before he could respond, leaving Daniel alone with the weight of decisions he hadn't expected to be making. Stay and fight a battle that seemed increasingly unwinnable, or leave and start fresh somewhere that didn't carry all this baggage. That night, he called his ex-wife Rachel. They'd maintained a cordial co-parenting relationship, and she'd always been someone he could talk through difficult decisions with. I'm thinking about changing jobs, he told her after the usual updates about Emma, because of what's been happening at work. Daniel had given her the broad strokes of the situation, enough that she understood without all the complicated details. Partly, but also because I'm not sure I want to work somewhere that handles conflict this way. What does Emma think? She doesn't know yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Rachel was quiet for a moment. You know what I think? I think you've spent 3 years making every decision based on what's safe and stable for Emma, which is admirable, but it's also a prison. Maybe it's time to make a choice based on what you actually want. What I want is to do right by my daughter. And you are. You're an amazing father, but you're also allowed to be a person who has needs and wants outside of parenting. If this job is making you miserable, Emma will feel that eventually. Kids are perceptive. So you think I should leave? I think you should do whatever lets you sleep at night. And I think maybe you should also figure out what's actually bothering you about this whole situation. What do you mean? I mean, is it the job that's the problem? Or is it that you care about this woman more than you're willing to admit, and you're angry that the world won't let you explore what that might mean? Daniel felt like she'd reached through the phone and pulled out something he'd been carefully not examining. It's not like that. Maybe not yet. But Daniel, I know you. You don't get this worked up over abstract principles. You're angry because someone you care about is being treated unfairly, and you're frustrated because the normal ways of fixing things aren't working. That's personal, not professional. After they hung up, Daniel sat with Rachel's words, turning them over in his mind. She wasn't wrong. The situation had stopped being about work politics or office gossip weeks ago. It had become about Maya, about wanting to protect her, defend her, be there for her in ways that went beyond professional courtesy. The question was what to do about that. The obvious answer was nothing. The situation was already complicated enough without adding actual romantic feelings to the mix. Maya had enough to deal with without him confessing attraction that would just make everything messier. But ignoring it felt dishonest, and Daniel had spent enough of his life being careful and measured and always choosing the safe path. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe it was time to actually want something for himself. Consequences be damned. Tuesday's interview at TechBridge went well. The technical team was sharp. The problems they were working on were interesting, and the culture seemed genuinely collaborative rather than performatively so. They made an offer that afternoon. Senior engineer position, salary bump, equity package, start date flexible. Daniel asked for a week to think about it. Wednesday evening, he was making dinner when his phone rang. Maya's name on the screen. "Hey," he answered, surprised. They'd barely communicated since the hallway conversation. "Hey, sorry to call out of the blue. Are you busy?" "Just cooking. What's up?" "I turned down the Seattle position." Daniel set down the wooden spoon he'd been using. "You did?" "I did. I talked to a friend who's a lawyer, got some advice about documentation and retaliation claims, and I decided I'm not running. If they want me gone, they can fire me, but I'm not leaving because rumors and weak leadership made them uncomfortable." Pride and concern warred in Daniel's chest. That takes guts. Or stupidity. Haven't decided which yet. She paused. "I also wanted to tell you that I think you should take the TechBridge job if they offered it." "How did you—" "Marcus told me. He's worried about you." Her voice softened. "I'm worried about you too. You're talented, Daniel, and you deserve to work somewhere that recognizes that without asterisks and conditions. Don't let what happened here trap you." "What if I don't want to leave?" "Then you're as stubborn as I am." which I respect but don't necessarily recommend. Daniel took a breath. Maya, can I ask you something? Sure. If none of this had happened, no rumors, no restructuring, no complications, would you have wanted to grab coffee sometime outside of work? The silence on the other end stretched long enough that Daniel started to regret asking. Then Maya spoke, voice careful. Yes, I would have, but Daniel, I know, the timing is terrible. The situation is complicated. I'm probably making everything worse by even bringing it up. You're not making it worse. You're just saying what we've both been not saying for weeks now. She sighed. But you're right about the timing. Even if I wanted to, which I do, we can't. Not now. Not while everyone's watching and waiting for us to confirm their assumptions. So what do? We survive this. We do our jobs well. We let the dust settle. And then maybe, when things calm down and we're not under a microscope, we figure out if there's something worth exploring. Her voice carried a note of determination mixed with regret. But we do it right. Not hidden, not apologetic. Out in the open when it won't cost us everything we've worked for. It was the most honest conversation they'd had since the storm, and it left Daniel feeling both hopeful and frustrated. There was something there, they'd both acknowledged it, but the world wasn't going to make it easy. Okay, he said. We wait. We wait, Maya agreed. And in the meantime, seriously consider that job offer. I'll still be here if you decide to stay, but I'll also understand if you need to go. After they hung up, Daniel stood in his kitchen with half-made dinner cooling on the stove, feeling like something fundamental had shifted. The situation was still complicated. The office was still toxic. The rumors were still destructive. But for the first time in weeks, he felt like he and Maya were facing it together rather than separately. And maybe that was enough to build on when the time was right. The decision to turn down TechBridge came easier than Daniel expected. He called Jennifer Martinez on Thursday morning and thanked her for the opportunity, explaining that he'd decided to stay with his current company for now. She was gracious about it, told him the door would remain open if circumstances changed, and wished him well. When he hung up, Daniel felt something settle in his chest. Not relief exactly, but a sense of rightness about the choice. He wasn't running. Neither was Maya. They were staying to face whatever came next, and there was something powerful in that shared commitment, even if they couldn't acknowledge it publicly. The office atmosphere shifted gradually over the following weeks, the way pressure changes before a storm breaks. The new project allocation process Sarah had announced created mountains of paperwork and committee reviews, slowing everything down to a bureaucratic crawl. Engineers grumbled about the inefficiency, which had the paradoxical effect of uniting people who'd previously been divided by gossip and speculation. Kevin, finding his authority diluted by the new oversight structure, became increasingly frustrated. During a team meeting 3 weeks after the restructuring, he made the mistake of criticizing the committee process in front of everyone. "This is ridiculous," he said, waving a printed form. "I have to justify why I'm assigning a database optimization project to an engineer with 8 years of database experience? What's next? A thesis defense for every code review?" Daniel watched the faces around the table. People were nodding, agreeing with Kevin even though many of them had supported the changes initially. It was a reminder that organizational politics cut both ways. The very process meant to protect against favoritism was now creating its own problems. After the meeting, Marcus pulled Daniel aside in the break room while they both refilled coffee. "Kevin's digging his own grave," Marcus said quietly. "He spent weeks complaining about lack of transparency, and now he's complaining about too much transparency. Leadership's going to notice." "Good. You're not even a little bit satisfied by it?" Daniel considered the question. "I'm tired, Marcus. Tired of the politics, tired of watching everyone perform for each other instead of just doing the work. I don't care if Kevin succeeds or fails. I just want to write good code and go home to my daughter." "That's very zen of you." "That's very exhausted of me." Marcus laughed, but his expression turned serious. "For what it's worth, people are starting to realize they overreacted. The rumors are dying down. I heard Sarah talking to one of the other VPs about how the whole situation was mishandled. A little late for that. Maybe. But it's something." What Marcus didn't mention, but Daniel had noticed, was that Maya's reduced team was consistently outperforming expectations. Despite having fewer engineers and lower priority projects, they were delivering faster and with higher quality than Kevin's expanded group. It was quiet vindication, the kind that came from competence rather than politics. Daniel caught glimpses of Maya around the office, in meetings, at her desk, occasionally in the cafeteria at lunch. They maintained careful distance, the kind of professional courtesy that wouldn't raise eyebrows. But sometimes their eyes would meet across the room, and in those brief moments, Daniel could see she was thinking the same thing he was, that they were waiting, that they were patient, that eventually the world would stop watching so closely. Emma noticed his improved mood that weekend. They were at the park, her favorite place with the good swings and the climbing structure that looked like a castle. She was getting too old for the playground, really, almost 8 now, and increasingly interested in activities that didn't involve slides and monkey bars. But she still liked coming here on Saturday mornings, and Daniel wasn't ready to give up this small ritual. "You seem happy, Daddy," she said, pumping her legs on the swing to go higher. "I am happy. I get to spend the day with my favorite person." "No, I mean different happy. Like something good happened." Daniel pushed her swing gently. "What makes you think something good happened?" "You've been humming. You never hum unless you're really happy." She twisted the swing chain, spinning herself around. "Did you get a promotion?" "No promotion, just a good week at work, I guess." "Is it because you have a girlfriend now?" The question caught him off guard for the second time in a month. "What?" "No. Em, where is this coming from?" She dragged her feet to slow the swing, looking at him with that too perceptive expression kids sometimes get. "You've been on your phone more, and you smile when you text. Mom does that too when she's texting her boyfriend." Daniel hadn't realized Rachel was seeing someone. "Your mom has a boyfriend?" "Sort of. His name is David, and he's boring but nice. She said they're taking it slow." Emma started swinging again. "So do you have a girlfriend or not?" "No girlfriend, sweetie, I promise. But you want one." It wasn't a question. Daniel looked at his daughter, this small person who somehow saw through every careful deflection he constructed, and decided honesty was better than evasion. "Maybe someday, if I meet the right person." "Is she nice, the maybe someday person?" "She's very nice, and smart, and she works hard." Emma grinned. "Does she like science?" "She does, actually." "Then I approve. When do I get to meet her?" "Slow down. There's nothing to meet yet. It's complicated." Adults always say things are complicated when they just mean difficult. Daniel laughed despite himself. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just don't always listen." She jumped off the swing mid-arc, landing with practiced ease. "Come on, let's get ice cream. It's important to celebrate when good things might happen, even if they're complicated." They walked to the ice cream shop holding hands, Emma chattering about school and friends and the science fair project she was planning. Daniel felt a wave of gratitude for this small person who took life's complexities in stride, who understood more than she should have to, but somehow remained optimistic anyway. Monday brought an unexpected email from Sarah Chen requesting a meeting. Daniel's first instinct was defensive. More questions, more audits, more justifications for work that spoke for itself. But when he arrived at her office that afternoon, Sarah's demeanor was different from their previous interactions. "Close the door," she said, gesturing to a chair. Daniel sat, wary. "I'm not going to waste your time with small talk," Sarah began. "I brought you in here to apologize." That was the last thing Daniel expected. "Apologize for what?" "For how we handled the situation with you and Maya. We got spooked by rumors and made organizational changes based on perception rather than performance. That was wrong, and it created exactly the kind of toxic environment we claim to be against." She leaned back in her chair. "I've been reviewing team metrics for the past month. Your work quality hasn't dropped despite the reassignment. Maya's smaller team is outperforming projections. Meanwhile, Kevin's group is struggling with cohesion and delivery timelines. I'm not sure what you want me to say." "I don't want you to say anything. I want you to know that we recognize the mistake, and we're working to correct it. Starting next month, we're restructuring again. Maya will be returning to full team lead responsibilities with expanded scope. You'll be reassigned back to her team if you're willing. Daniel felt something unclench in his chest. What about the optics, the perception issues? We're addressing those by being transparent about our reasoning. Maya's results speak for themselves. So do yours. We should have trusted that from the beginning instead of letting gossip drive decision-making. Sarah met his eyes directly. I can't undo the past few weeks, but I can make sure it doesn't happen again, if you're willing to give us another chance. Does Maya know about this? I'm meeting with her after you. I wanted to talk to you first because I know you had a job offer from TechBridge. If you've changed your mind about staying, I need to know now so we can plan accordingly. Daniel thought about it for maybe 3 seconds. I'm staying. And yes, I'm willing to move back to Maya's team. Good. That's good. Sarah stood, extending her hand. Thank you for your patience with this process, Daniel, and for not letting it compromise your work quality. That took professionalism a lot of people wouldn't have managed. Walking back to his desk, Daniel felt lighter than he had in weeks. The company was course-correcting. Maya was getting her team back. The whispers and speculation would probably never fully disappear, but at least the official response was changing from punishment to acknowledgement. He wanted to text Maya immediately to share the news, but stopped himself. She'd find out soon enough in her own meeting. Instead, he dove into his current project with renewed focus, the legacy code refactor suddenly feeling less like a punishment and more like just another job that needed doing well. An hour later, his phone buzzed. Maya's name, a simple message. Heard the news? Drinks after work? Daniel stared at the text, considering. They'd been so careful for weeks, maintaining distance, avoiding any situation that could be misinterpreted. But Sarah's apology had shifted something. The company was admitting fault, which meant the narrative was changing. Maybe it was time to stop hiding. He typed back, "Where and when?" That place on Morrison, 6:30. The bar was a quiet spot near the waterfront, the kind of place professionals went for after-work decompression without the scene of the louder downtown establishments. Daniel arrived first, claimed a booth in the back, and ordered a beer he didn't particularly want, but gave him something to do with his hands. Maya walked in at 6:35, scanning the room until she spotted him. She'd changed out of her usual work clothes into jeans and a sweater, hair down instead of pulled back, and Daniel was struck again by how much younger she looked outside the armor of her professional persona. She slid into the booth across from him. "Sorry I'm late. Got caught by the engineering director who wanted to personally welcome me back to full team lead status, as if he hadn't just spent a month letting me twist in the wind." Corporate amnesia is a powerful thing. Seriously. She flagged down the server, ordered a glass of wine, then turned her full attention to Daniel. "So, we survived." "Apparently." Sarah was actually pretty candid with me. She said the whole situation was mishandled from the start, that they should have shut down the rumors immediately instead of validating them with organizational changes. Maya's wine arrived and she took a sip. I appreciated the honesty, even if it came about 4 weeks too late. She said the same to me. Do you believe it, the apology? I believe she means it. I also believe the company will do the exact same thing again the next time perception and reality come into conflict, because that's how corporate environments work. But for now, yes, I'll take the win. They fell into easy conversation, the kind they'd had that first night at her apartment before everything got complicated. Maya talked about her family in California, the pressure they'd put on her to follow a traditional path that looked nothing like engineering leadership. Daniel told her about Emma's perceptive questions, her approval of the maybe someday girlfriend who liked science. She sounds wonderful, Maya said. Your daughter. She is, terrifying sometimes in how much she sees, but wonderful. Does she know about me? About any of this? She knows I work with someone I respect, that's about it. I don't involve her in the office drama. Smart. Maya traced the rim of her wine glass with one finger. Can I ask you something? Sure. When you got the offer from TechBridge, how close did you come to taking it? Daniel considered the question. Closer than I expected. Not because I wanted to leave, but because staying felt like choosing to keep fighting a battle that might not be winnable. What changed your mind? You did. When you turned down Seattle and decided to stay, it made me realize running wasn't the answer. That sometimes you have to stand your ground even when it's uncomfortable. He met her eyes. And honestly, The thought of leaving without seeing where this could go, whatever this is between us, that bothered me more than the office politics. Maya was quiet for a moment, then smiled. That's either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Definitely both. She leaned forward slightly. So what now? We're going back to working together, which means all the same concerns about perception and professionalism still apply. We might have survived the first round, but people don't forget. They'll be watching even closer now, waiting to see if their suspicions were justified. So we're careful. Professional at work, honest outside of it. We let our work quality speak for itself and stop worrying about what people think. Daniel paused. Unless you'd rather we just stay completely separate. Keep it simple. Simple would be easier, Maya admitted. Simple would also be dishonest. I like you, Daniel. I have since before the storm, if I'm being completely transparent, but I've spent my entire career being careful about mixing personal and professional life because I knew any mistake would be magnified 10 times over. Young woman in leadership, every choice scrutinized, every relationship questioned. I understand if you want to wait until one of us changes companies or the situation is different. That's the sensible thing to do. She finished her wine. But I've been sensible my whole life. And where did it get me? Accused of favoritism for treating a colleague like a human being, punished for rumors other people created, watching everything I built nearly get dismantled because someone saw us leave a building together. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe it's time to stop being quite so sensible. We're adults. We're allowed to get coffee, to have dinner, to see if there's something worth exploring here. And if people want to make assumptions, let them. We'll deal with it honestly instead of hiding. Daniel felt something shift in the conversation, potential becoming intention. Are you sure? Because once we cross that line, there's no going back to plausible deniability. I'm sure. Maya's voice was steady, certain. I'm tired of living my life according to other people's comfort levels. You're the first person in years who's looked at me and seen someone beyond the job title, who stood up for me when it would have been easier to distance yourself. I want to see where that goes, office politics be damned. They left the bar together, walking along the waterfront in the cool evening air. The city lights reflected on the water, and the usual Portland crowds moved around them, oblivious to the small revolution happening in the space between two people deciding to stop hiding. So is this a date? Daniel asked as they walked. Feels like one. Should have brought flowers, Maya laughed. Next time, let's not get ahead of ourselves. They walked for another hour, talking about everything and nothing, finding rhythms of conversation that felt both new and familiar. When they finally said goodnight at the parking garage where both their cars waited, there was a moment of hesitation at the boundary between professional and personal, careful and honest. Maya solved it by standing on her toes and kissing him on the cheek, quick and deliberate. See you at work, Daniel. See you at work. Driving home, Daniel felt like he'd stepped off a cliff and found ground beneath his feet instead of empty air. They were doing this. Whatever this was, they were choosing it consciously and openly, and that felt right in ways that months of careful distance never had. The following weeks established a new normal. At work, Daniel and Maya maintained professionalism that would satisfy even the most skeptical observer. Project assignments went through the committee process, documentation was thorough, and their interactions focused purely on technical matters and team coordination. But outside the office, they began building something else. Coffee on Wednesday mornings before work at the place near Maya's apartment, lunch on Saturdays at the farmer's market downtown, a movie on a Thursday evening when Emma was with Rachel. Small, deliberate steps toward understanding each other beyond the crisis that had brought them together. Daniel found himself impressed by Maya in new ways. She was funny when she let her guard down, with a dry sense of humor that caught him off guard. She was passionate about cooking, experimenting with recipes the way she approached code problems, systematically testing variables until she found the optimal solution. She was thoughtful about the world in ways that went beyond technical intelligence, asking questions that made him reconsider assumptions he hadn't known he was making. "Do you think we're moving too slow?" Maya asked one Saturday over Vietnamese food at a place she'd discovered in southeast Portland. "Too slow for what?" "I don't know. Normal relationship progression? We've been doing this for 5 weeks and we haven't even had a proper kiss yet." Daniel smiled. We're making up our own timeline. Doesn't have to match anyone else's expectations. That's very diplomatic of you. I'm also terrified of screwing this up by rushing. That's more honest. She reached across the table, taking his hand. For the record, I'm terrified too. Of rushing, of not rushing enough, of the office finding out and starting the whole nightmare over again. They're going to find out eventually. Portland's not that big, and we work in the same building. I know, I'm just trying to build something solid first, something that can withstand the scrutiny when it comes. She squeezed his hand. Is that okay? The slowness? More than okay. I've got Emma to think about too. Can't just bring someone into her life without being sure it's going somewhere. Do you think it's going somewhere? Daniel looked at her, this brilliant, complicated woman who'd somehow become essential to his life in a matter of months. Yeah, I do. The kiss happened 2 weeks later, on Maya's couch, after they'd cooked dinner together and were halfway through a movie neither was paying attention to. It was soft and tentative and tasted like the wine they'd been drinking, and when they broke apart, Maya was smiling. About time, she said. Worth the wait? Definitely worth the wait. They took it slow after that too, building physical intimacy with the same deliberate care they'd applied to everything else. Daniel appreciated the pace even as part of him wanted to rush forward. This mattered too much to treat casually. At work, the return to normal had its own complexities. Kevin's team was officially disbanded after 2 months of poor performance, and the engineers were redistributed across other teams. Kevin himself was moved to an individual contributor role, a demotion that everyone recognized but no one officially acknowledged. Daniel felt no satisfaction in it, just a weary recognition that corporate politics destroyed careers without regard for intention or fairness. Maya's expanded team thrived. She'd learned from the experience, building in more transparency and documentation than strictly necessary, making sure every decision could withstand scrutiny. Daniel watched her navigate the balance between authentic leadership and protective caution, and admired how she refused to let the experience make her cynical. 3 months into their careful relationship, Emma asked again about meeting the maybe-someday girlfriend. They were making pancakes on a Sunday morning, Daniel's week with her extending through the weekend. Is she still maybe someday? Emma asked, flipping a pancake with more confidence than she'd had a few months ago. Or is she definitely now? When did you learn to negotiate like a lawyer? I'm 8, Dad. I'm very sophisticated. Daniel laughed. She's definitely now, I guess. Her name is Maya. Maya. I like that name. It's pretty. Emma slid the pancake onto a plate. So when do I meet her? When you're ready and she's ready and we're all ready together? That's a lot of ready. It's important. You're the most important person in my life, Em. I need to make sure anyone I bring into our lives is someone you can trust and like. Emma considered this seriously. Does she make you happy? She does. Then I'm ready whenever you are. Just give me warning so I can wear my good shirt. The meeting happened 2 weeks later at the Science Museum, neutral territory that gave Emma something to focus on besides scrutinizing her father's girlfriend. Maya showed up in casual clothes with her hair in a ponytail, looking nervous in a way Daniel had never seen her at work. Hi, she said to Emma, crouching down to eye level. I've heard a lot about you. Your dad says you're into science? Mostly biology and chemistry. Physics is okay, but less interesting. Emma studied Maya with an intensity that made Daniel want to intervene. Do you like science? I do. I studied computer science, which is kind of like math and logic combined. That's cool. Dad says you're really smart. Your dad is biased, but I try to be competent at least. They spent 3 hours at the museum, Emma leading them through exhibits with running commentary, occasionally testing Maya's knowledge with questions that got increasingly specific. Maya handled it well, admitting when she didn't know something and asking Emma to explain, which seemed to satisfy his daughter more than false expertise would have. Afterward, over ice cream at Emma's favorite place, his daughter delivered her verdict. She's good, Emma told Daniel when Maya went to the bathroom. Smart and nice, and she doesn't talk down to me. I approve. That's it? Just like that? What did you expect, a background check? Emma grinned. She makes you smile, Dad. That's enough for me. When Maya came back, Emma immediately launched into telling her about the science fair project she was planning, something involving plant growth and soil pH levels. Maya listened attentively, asked good questions, and offered to help if Emma needed a second pair of hands for measurements. Driving home later, just Daniel and Emma, his daughter was quiet for a long time before speaking. "I like her, but I need to ask you something." "Okay." "If you and Maya get really serious, like married serious, would we have to move? Would things change a lot?" Daniel pulled into their apartment parking lot and turned to face his daughter. "I don't know what's going to happen with Maya and me, but I can promise you this. Any decision that affects your life, we make together. Your home, your school, your routine, those things are yours. No one gets to change them without your input." "Not even if you fall in love?" "Not even then. You're my priority, Em. Always." She nodded, satisfied. "Okay. Just wanted to make sure. She's really nice, though. I hope it works out." That conversation stayed with Daniel over the following weeks as his relationship with Maya deepened. They were past the tentative stage now, settling into something that felt sustainable and real. Maya had met Emma, Emma approved, and the pieces of his life that had felt separate were beginning to integrate. At work, someone finally asked directly. Marcus cornered Daniel in the break room on a Friday afternoon, expression curious but not judgmental. "So you and Maya are actually together, right? Like, officially?" Daniel considered deflecting, then decided against it. "Yeah, we are." "How long?" "A few months. We've been taking it slow." Marcus nodded. "For what it's worth, most people think it's about time, the ones who aren't still invested in drama, anyway." "People know?" "Daniel, you two have been having coffee every Wednesday for 3 months. You leave for lunch together most Saturdays. Yeah, people know." Marcus grinned. "Difference is, now that it's actually happening, it's less interesting than when it was just rumor. Real relationships are boring. Scandal is exciting." "So the office has moved on?" "Mostly. There are still a few people who think Maya promoted herself through sleeping with subordinates, but those people are idiots who are going to find fault regardless. The rest of us are just happy the drama phase is over." It was anticlimactic in the best possible way. The relationship that had started with so much scrutiny and speculation had become, through patience and honesty, just another office romance that people acknowledged and then stopped caring about. That evening, Daniel had dinner at Maya's apartment. They'd fallen into the habit of Friday night dinners, taking turns cooking, and tonight was her turn. She'd made something complicated involving lamb and preserved lemons that tasted better than anything from a restaurant. "Marcus asked me about us today," Daniel said over dinner. "Apparently everyone knows." Maya didn't look surprised. "Sarah asked me about it last week." Very carefully, very professionally, she wanted to make sure there were no conflicts of interest or concerns about team dynamics. "What did you tell her?" "That we're together, that it started after the restructuring, and that we're being careful to maintain professional boundaries at work." She seemed satisfied. Maya took a sip of wine. "I also told her that if anyone had concerns about favoritism or professionalism, they should document specific instances rather than relying on vague feelings." "Very official of you." "I learned my lesson about letting rumors go unchallenged. This time, if people want to question my leadership, they can bring evidence or stop talking." Daniel reached across the table, taking her hand. "I'm proud of you for not letting them make you smaller." "I'm proud of us for not running when it would have been easier." She squeezed his hand. "Do you ever think about how different things would be if you just called that ride share for me? If you hadn't offered me a ride?" "Sometimes. But then I think we would have found our way to each other eventually. Maybe later, maybe under different circumstances, but eventually." "That's romantic of you." "I have my moments." Maya smiled, then her expression turned more serious. "I need to tell you something. I got offered a director position. It would mean moving to the business intelligence division. Completely different reporting structure from engineering." Daniel felt his stomach drop. "When?" "They approached me this week. It's a good opportunity. Bigger scope, better title, significant raise. But it would also mean I'm not your direct manager anymore, which removes a lot of the complications we've been navigating. Do you want it, the director role?" "I don't know. Part of me does. It's career advancement, new challenges, proving I can lead beyond just technical teams. But another part feels like I'd be running again, choosing safety over where I actually want to be. Where do you want to be? Maya met his eyes. Honestly, I want to keep leading engineering teams. I want to build products and mentor engineers and solve technical problems. The director role is prestigious, but it's more management and less hands-on. I think I'd miss the work. Then don't take it. Even if it means we keep dealing with perception issues? We've been dealing with perception issues for months. We're good at it now. Daniel stood, moving around the table to pull Maya to her feet. Take the job if you want the job. Don't take it to make our relationship easier. We'll figure that part out regardless. She wrapped her arms around him, resting her head against his chest. When did you get so wise? I have a very sophisticated 8-year-old who keeps me honest. They stood like that for a long moment, the dinner getting cold on the table, the Portland evening settling into night outside her windows. Daniel thought about how far they'd come from that first stormy Friday, from simple kindness twisted into scandal to this solid, honest thing they'd built together through patience and courage. Maya pulled back slightly, looking up at him. I'm not taking the director job, you're right. I'd miss the technical work. And I'm tired of letting other people's discomfort make my decisions for me. You're sure? I'm sure. She kissed him, slow and deep. Now, can we stop talking about work? I have plans for the rest of this evening that don't involve organizational charts. Daniel laughed. What kind of plans? The kind that involve significantly less talking and much more of this. She kissed him again, and Daniel let himself sink into the moment, into the certainty that they'd found something worth fighting for and were strong enough to keep it. The rest of that evening unfolded with the kind of easy intimacy that comes from months of patient building. They finished dinner, eventually, moved to the couch with wine and conversation that ranged from work frustrations to childhood memories to the small observations about life that people share when they're learning each other's landscapes. Around midnight, Daniel reluctantly pulled himself away, knowing he had Emma in the morning and wanting to be present for her rather than exhausted. Text me when you get home, Maya said at the door, a ritual they'd established early on. Always do. The drive back to his apartment took 20 minutes through quiet streets, Portland settling into its late-night rhythm. Daniel found himself thinking about Maya's decision to turn down the director position, about what it meant that she'd chosen to stay where she was, despite the complications it created for them. It would have been easier to take the promotion, to remove the power dynamics that made some people uncomfortable, to start fresh in a different division where their relationship wouldn't raise eyebrows. But Maya had chosen the harder path, the honest one, just like she'd chosen to stay when Seattle offered an escape, just like she'd chosen to fight rather than accept being pushed out. Daniel was beginning to understand that this was who Maya was at her core. Someone who didn't run from difficult situations, who faced challenges directly even when retreat would be simpler. It was one of the things he loved about her. The thought stopped him as he parked in his building's garage. Love. He hadn't let himself think that word yet, had been careful to keep his feelings categorized as strong attraction, deep respect, genuine affection. But sitting there in his car at midnight, he had to admit the truth to himself. He was falling in love with Maya Collins, and probably had been since before he was willing to acknowledge it. The question was what to do about that realization. Saturday morning arrived with Emma's boundless energy, her excitement about the science fair project reaching new heights. Maya had offered to help with measurements that afternoon, and Emma had been counting down the hours since the invitation was extended. Is Maya coming at 2 or 3? Emma asked for the 4th time over breakfast. 2, like I've told you the last 3 times you asked. I just want to make sure. We have a lot to do. Emma was surrounded by notebooks filled with observations about the bean plants she'd been growing under different soil, pH conditions. Do you think she'll be impressed by my data collection? I think she'll be impressed by how thorough you are. Good, because I've been very scientific about this. Emma looked up from her notes, expression suddenly serious. Dad, can I ask you something? Always. Are you going to marry Maya? Daniel nearly dropped the coffee mug he'd been refilling. That's a big question for a Saturday morning. You didn't answer it. That's because I don't know the answer yet. We haven't talked about marriage. But you love her, right? There it was again, that word, this time coming from his 8-year-old daughter who saw things he tried to keep hidden. What makes you think that? You look at her the way you used to look at Mom, but happier, and you smile more when you talk about her. Emma returned to her notes, matter of fact. I think you should marry her. She's nice, and she likes science, and she doesn't treat me like I'm a little kid. Marriage is complicated, Em. There's a lot to think about. Adults always say that, but it seems simple to me. You love someone, they love you back. You decide to be together. The rest is just details. Daniel wished life actually worked with that kind of clarity, but he also recognized the truth in Emma's simplified version. At its core, relationships really were that straightforward. The complications came from letting fear and practicality override what the heart already knew. Maya arrived at 2 exactly, carrying a bag of supplies she'd picked up from a craft store. Emma immediately dragged her over to the array of bean plants lined up on the apartment balcony, launching into an explanation of her methodology that was impressively detailed for someone her age. So, I've been testing 4 different pH levels, Emma explained, showing Maya her handwritten charts. Each group has 5 plants, and I measure their height every 3 days. I also track leaf count, stem thickness, and any discoloration or abnormalities. Maya examined the data seriously. This is really solid experimental design. Have you controlled for other variables, light exposure, water amount? All the plants get the same amount of water on the same schedule, and they're all on the same balcony, so the light is consistent. Emma beamed at the validation. I even rotate their positions every week, so no plant gets an advantage from being in a better spot. That's brilliant. You're going to do really well at the science fair. They spent the next 2 hours taking measurements, recording data, and helping Emma create visual aids for her presentation. Daniel watched from the kitchen while ostensibly preparing snacks, struck by how natural Maya was with his daughter. She didn't condescend or oversimplify, treated Emma's project with the same seriousness she'd bring to a work presentation, and somehow knew exactly when to lead and when to let Emma figure things out herself. Your daughter is extraordinary, Maya said later after Emma had gone to her room to organize her notes. They were sitting on the couch, close but not touching, aware that Emma could emerge at any moment. She likes you too. Asked me this morning if I was going to marry you. Maya's eyebrows rose. That's direct. She's 8. Subtlety isn't her strong suit yet. Daniel paused. She said I should. Marry you, I mean. And what did you say? That it was complicated and we hadn't talked about it. Very diplomatic. Maya shifted slightly, her expression thoughtful. For the record, I'm not expecting that conversation anytime soon. We've only been officially together for a few months. I'm in no rush. But you're not opposed to the idea? Eventually? Eventually? No, I'm not opposed. She met his eyes. I'm 36, Daniel. I'm past the point of dating just to pass time. If I'm with someone, it's because I can see a future there. But I also believe in building foundations before making big commitments. We're still learning each other. Fair enough. Emma reappeared then, wanting to show Maya her preliminary poster design, and the moment passed. But it stayed with Daniel through the rest of the afternoon, through dinner together, through saying goodbye when Maya left that evening. The knowledge that they were both thinking long-term, both seeing this as something with potential beyond just enjoying each other's company. Work on Monday brought a different kind of revelation. Sarah Chen called an engineering all-hands to announce organizational changes that had been months in development. The committee-based project allocation system was being retired in favor of a hybrid model that trusted team leads to make decisions, but required quarterly reviews for accountability. It was an implicit admission that the bureaucratic overcorrection had created more problems than it solved. We've learned from the past 6 months, Sarah said to the assembled engineers. We overcomplicated our processes in response to isolated concerns, and that hurt both productivity and morale. Going forward, we're trusting our leaders to lead while maintaining appropriate oversight. If anyone has concerns about fairness or professionalism, we're establishing clear channels for reporting that don't require restructuring entire teams. After the meeting, Maya pulled her team together for a quick sync. Daniel watched her navigate the announcement with characteristic directness, acknowledging the difficulties of the past months while focusing on moving forward productively. I know we've all been dealing with extra process and scrutiny, Maya said. That's ending now. I'm going to run this team the way I did before, which means trusting you to do excellent work and supporting you when challenges arise. If anyone has concerns about how I manage or assign projects, my door is always open for direct conversation. But we're done letting outside noise dictate how we work together. The team responded with visible relief. Even the engineers who'd been transferred from Kevin's disbanded group seemed energized by the return to clarity and reduced bureaucracy. After the meeting, Marcus caught up with Daniel in the hallway. Feels like we're finally getting back to normal. Something like normal anyway. You and Maya seem solid. The office gossip has moved on to other people's drama. Daniel smiled. Good to know we're boring now. Boring is underrated, especially in this place. Marcus lowered his voice. For what it's worth, I'm glad you both stayed. Would have been a loss if either of you had left over that nonsense. The week progressed with a rhythm that felt increasingly stable. Daniel worked on a new authentication framework for the company's mobile apps, technically challenging work that reminded him why he'd gotten into software engineering in the first place. Maya led her team through sprint planning and architectural decisions with the confidence of someone who'd survived a trial by fire and come out stronger. They maintained professional boundaries at work, but the careful distance of the early months had softened into something more natural. A quick conversation about technical approaches. Coffee in the break room where they stood with other engineers rather than isolating themselves. The occasional shared joke in team meetings that no one found suspicious because it was just two colleagues who worked well together. Outside work, their relationship deepened in quieter ways. Maya started keeping a toothbrush at Daniel's apartment. Daniel had a drawer at her place for the clothes he inevitably left behind. They developed routines. Saturday morning farmer's market, Sunday evening cooking together. Wednesday coffee that had become as essential as any other part of the week. Emma grew comfortable with Maya's presence, no longer treating her visits as special events, but as normal parts of their lives. One evening, Daniel came home from picking up takeout to find Emma teaching Maya how to play the video game she'd been obsessed with lately, both of them laughing at Maya's lack of coordination with the controller. Your girlfriend is terrible at this, Emma announced when Daniel walked in. I can hear you, Maya said, not taking her eyes off the screen as her character died spectacularly. It's true, though. You're worse than Dad, and he's pretty bad. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Em, Daniel said, setting down the food. He watched them play for a few more rounds, Emma patient in her instruction, Maya genuinely trying despite having no natural talent for gaming. It was such a normal domestic scene, the kind of moment that marked real integration rather than careful visiting. His daughter and his girlfriend getting along without his mediation, building their own relationship independent of his role in both their lives. Later, after Emma had gone to bed and Maya was getting ready to leave, she paused at the door. I really love her, your daughter. She loves you too, in her own 8-year-old way. It scares me sometimes, Maya admitted. How much I care about both of you. How much it would hurt if this didn't work out. Daniel pulled her close. So we make it work out. That simple? Emma seems to think so. Adults overcomplicate things, apparently. Maya laughed against his chest. Smart kid. October brought Emma's science fair, and the whole extended family showed up to support her. Rachel was there with her boyfriend David, who turned out to be less boring than Emma had suggested and genuinely interested in her project. Daniel's parents drove in from the coast, thrilled to see their granddaughter presenting research with the confidence of someone 3 times her age. And Maya was there, standing beside Daniel as Emma explained her findings to the judges, her hand finding his in the crowd. She's going to win this thing, Maya whispered. Biased much? Completely, but also objectively correct. Look at that presentation. Emma did win, taking first place in the elementary division with a project that demonstrated both scientific rigor and genuine curiosity. During the awards ceremony, she searched the crowd until she found Daniel, and her smile was worth every anxious moment of the past months. The celebration afterward at the ice cream shop had an unexpectedly festive atmosphere. Rachel and David sat with Daniel's parents, everyone getting along with the easy comfort of people who'd moved past old conflicts into functional cooperation. Maya fit seamlessly into the group, charming Daniel's mother with questions about her garden and making Rachel laugh with stories about Emma's demanding scientific standards. I like her, Rachel told Daniel quietly while the others were ordering. She's good for you, Good for Emma, too. Yeah? Yeah. You seem lighter than I've seen you in years, like you're not just going through motions anymore. It was true. Daniel realized he'd spent the last 3 years since the divorce operating in a kind of maintenance mode, meeting responsibilities, showing up for Emma, doing his job competently, but without real passion. Maya had woken something up in him, reminded him that life could be about more than just managing obligations. That night, after dropping Emma off with Rachel for her week and saying goodbye to his parents, Daniel went back to Maya's apartment. They'd fallen into the habit of staying together most nights when Emma wasn't around, and her place had started to feel as much like home as his own. "Your family is wonderful," Maya said, kicking off her shoes and collapsing on the couch. "Your mom is hilarious, and your ex-wife is remarkably gracious about the whole situation. Rachel's good people. We just weren't good together." Daniel joined her on the couch. "She said you're good for me." High praise from an ex-wife. "She meant it, said I seem lighter." Maya turned to face him, tucking her legs under her. "Do you feel lighter?" "I do. You make me happy, Maya, really happy, in ways I'd forgotten were possible." "You make me happy too. You and Emma both." She reached out, tracing his jawline with her fingers. "I know we said we're taking things slow, building foundations, not rushing, but I need you to know something." "Okay. I'm in love with you." "Have been for a while now, probably since before I was ready to admit it. And I know that's big and maybe premature, but I'm tired of not saying what I actually feel." Daniel felt his heart rate pick up, the words he'd been holding back for weeks suddenly urgent. "I love you too. Was going to tell you eventually, but couldn't find the right moment. This seems like a pretty good moment." "It really does." He kissed her deep and sure, and she responded with an intensity that made his breath catch. When they broke apart, Maya was smiling. "So now what?" she asked. "Now we keep doing what we're doing, building something real, one day at a time." Daniel pulled her closer. "No rush, no pressure, just us figuring it out together." "I can work with that." They spent the rest of the evening tangled together on the couch, talking about everything and nothing, making plans for the next week and the next month and the vague future beyond that. It was comfortable and exciting at the same time, the rare combination of security and possibility that good relationships provided. Around midnight, Maya's phone rang. She glanced at the screen, frowned, and answered. "Sarah? Is everything okay?" A pause. "When? Are they sure?" Another pause, her expression shifting to concern. "Okay, yes, I understand. I'll be there first thing tomorrow." She hung up, and Daniel could see her mind already working through whatever problem had just arrived. "What's wrong?" "The authentication framework you've been building. Someone found a potential vulnerability. Not confirmed yet, but serious enough that Sarah wants the team in tomorrow to assess and patch if necessary." Maya was already reaching for her laptop. "We might be pulling an all-nighter." Daniel felt the professional side of his brain kick in, the personal moment shifting seamlessly into work mode. "Let me see the report." The first few weeks in the new apartment had the chaotic energy of any major transition. Emma's room got painted the ocean blue she'd requested, and she spent an entire weekend arranging her furniture exactly how she wanted it. Maya's kitchen supplies took over every available cabinet, organized with the same systematic precision she applied to code architecture. Daniel's books and Emma's science equipment competed for shelf space in the living room, creating a blend of their interests that somehow worked. Work continued its steady rhythm. The authentication framework Daniel had built was now deployed across all the company's mobile applications, running smoothly after the vulnerability patch. Maya's team had taken on a new initiative around data analytics that was getting attention from the executive level. The office gossip had indeed moved on to other drama, and their relationship had become just another fact of the workplace landscape. But living together revealed new dimensions of each other that weekend visits and deliberate dates hadn't fully captured. Maya was a morning person who woke up energized and talkative, while Daniel needed at least 20 minutes and 2 cups of coffee before he could handle conversation. Daniel was meticulous about cleaning as he went, while Maya tended to create chaos while cooking and then clean it all up at once at the end. Emma had strong opinions about bathroom schedules and made a chart to ensure everyone got adequate time. We're like a little ecosystem, Maya observed one evening while the three of them were assembling furniture for the living room, finding our balance. Ecosystems take time to stabilize, Emma said, screwing in a leg on the coffee table with careful precision. We just need to be patient while we adjust. When did you become the wise adult in this relationship? Daniel asked. I've always been the wise one. You're just noticing now. March arrived with the kind of early spring weather Portland specialized in. Sudden bursts of sun, followed by surprise rain. Cherry blossoms appearing overnight, the whole city collectively forgetting how to drive in anything but overcast conditions. Emma's 9th birthday was approaching, and she'd declared she wanted a science-themed party with her friends from school. Not a kid party, she specified. A real science party with actual experiments. Maya immediately volunteered to help plan it, and Daniel watched as the two of them conspired over experiment ideas that would be impressive but safe for 4th graders. They settled on making slime with different polymers, volcano demonstrations with various reactive combinations, and a finale involving Mentos and diet soda that would definitely require outdoor space. The party was scheduled for a Saturday in late March, and the morning arrived with perfect weather, sunny and mild, the kind of day that made everyone in Portland remember why they tolerated 9 months of gray. Rachel dropped Emma off early, staying to help set up despite it being technically Daniel's weekend. This is quite the production, Rachel said, surveying the backyard where Maya was organizing experiment stations. Maya doesn't do anything halfway, Daniel replied. I can see that. Emma's lucky to have her. Rachel paused, then added, You both are. She's good for you, Daniel. Really good. 15 9-year-olds descended on the apartment at 2 p.m., and controlled chaos erupted. Maya ran the experiments with the confidence of someone used to managing teams, keeping the kids engaged while preventing anyone from accidentally creating anything too explosive. Emma glowed with pride as her friends declared this the best birthday party they'd ever attended. Daniel stood back, watching Maya help a shy kid successfully complete a slime experiment, watching Emma explain polymer chains to her friends with enthusiasm, watching the life they'd built together function exactly as it should. He felt a wave of certainty wash over him, the kind that comes when everything aligns and you suddenly understand what you want with perfect clarity. After the party, after the cleanup, after Emma had crashed hard from the sugar and excitement, Daniel and Maya sat on the balcony with wine and the satisfaction of a successful event behind them. That was amazing, Maya said. Exhausting, but amazing. You were amazing. You made our birthday special in ways I couldn't have managed alone. We're a team. That's what teams do. Daniel took a breath, the certainty from earlier coalescing into words. I want to marry you. Maya's wine glass paused halfway to her lips. What? I want to marry you. Not someday, not eventually. I want to actually marry you, make this official, build a legal and permanent family together. The words came faster now, months of feeling finally finding their voice. I know we said we weren't rushing, and I'm not trying to pressure you, but I also know what I want. And I want this. I want you. I want us. I want to wake up every morning knowing we chose each other deliberately and completely. Maya set down her wine glass carefully, her expression hard to read. Daniel, I don't have a ring. This isn't some grand proposal. I'm just telling you what I know to be true. He reached for her hand. You've made my life better in every possible way. You've been incredible with Emma. You've challenged me to be braver and more honest. And I love you so much it sometimes scares me. So yes, I want to marry you, if you'll have me. The silence stretched long enough that Daniel started to worry he'd miscalculated badly, pushed too far too fast, violated the careful patience they'd maintained for months. Then Maya laughed, a sound somewhere between joy and disbelief. You're serious. Completely serious. You just proposed to me on our balcony after a children's birthday party, covered in slime residue, without a ring. I did. That's the least romantic proposal I've ever heard of. Daniel felt his stomach drop. I can do better. I can plan something, make it special. Maya cut him off by kissing him, deep and sure. When she pulled back, she was smiling. I don't want better. I want this. I want honest and real, and you telling me what you feel without overthinking it. She cupped his face in her hands. Yes, Daniel, I'll marry you. I'll absolutely marry you. Relief and joy flooded through him in equal measure. Yeah? Yeah, I love you, and I love Emma, and I love the life we're building together. I want to make it official too. She kissed him again, softer this time. But we're getting you a ring before we tell people. I have some pride. They sat there on the balcony as the sun set, making plans in the way newly engaged couples do. When to tell Emma, how to break it to their parents, whether to have a big wedding or something small. The conversation was easy, full of laughter and possibility, two people who'd found each other through chaos and chosen to build something permanent. Telling Emma happened the next morning over pancakes, their Saturday ritual that had persisted despite all the changes. So, Maya and I have some news, Daniel began, suddenly nervous despite Emma's earlier approval of their relationship. Emma looked up from her pancakes, syrup on her chin. You're getting married. Daniel and Maya exchanged glances. How did you know? You both look happy and weird, like you have a secret. And Maya keeps looking at her hand like there should be something there. Emma grinned. Also, I heard you talking on the balcony last night. My window was open. How much did you hear? Maya asked. Enough to know Dad proposed without a ring, and you said yes anyway. Emma put down her fork. So am I going to be in the wedding? You promised. Absolutely, Maya said. We wouldn't dream of getting married without you playing an important role. Good. Can I help plan it? I have ideas. Of course you can help plan it. It's your family too. Emma nodded, satisfied, then returned to her pancakes as if they'd just discussed something as mundane as the weather. Daniel marveled again at his daughter's ability to take major life changes in stride. Later, while Emma was in her room, Maya pulled Daniel aside. We really need to get you a ring before we tell anyone else. Your daughter already scooped our announcement. What kind of ring do you want? Something simple. I'm not precious about jewelry, but I want something I can wear every day without worrying about it. She paused. And I want to get you one too. If we're doing this, we're doing it equally. They spent the following weekend ring shopping, Emma in tow as their consultant. The experience was unexpectedly fun, trying on different styles and getting Emma's unfiltered opinions on each one. That one looks like something a robot would wear, she declared about one modern geometric design. Too boring, she said about a plain band. Now that's pretty. She approved when Maya tried on a simple platinum band with small diamonds set flush in the metal. Maya looked at it, turning her hand to catch the light. I like this one too. For Daniel, they chose a matching platinum band, simple and unfussy. When they left the jewelry store, officially engaged with rings to prove it, Emma was bouncing with excitement. Can we tell people now? Can I tell Mom? Yes, you can tell people now, Daniel said. Emma immediately pulled out her phone, a basic model Rachel had given her for emergencies and coordination, and called her mother. Daniel heard Rachel's surprised congratulations through the phone, genuine warmth in her voice. Your mom's happy for us, Emma reported when she hung up. She says congratulations and wants to know if she's invited to the wedding. Of course she's invited, Maya said. She's your mom. She'll always be part of this family. The news spread quickly after that. Daniel's parents were thrilled, his mother immediately offering to help with planning, and his father gruffly welcoming Maya into the family officially. Maya's parents were more reserved but ultimately supportive, her mother noting that at least Maya was finally settling down, even if she was doing it later than ideal. At work, Marcus was the first to notice the ring when Daniel showed up Monday morning. Hold up, is that what I think it is? If you think it's an engagement ring, then yes. Marcus grabbed his hand to examine the ring more closely. You and Maya are engaged? When did this happen? Last weekend. We're telling people now. This is great, man. Congratulations. Marcus paused. Sarah's going to want to know. The whole office power dynamics thing. Daniel had anticipated this. We'll tell her today, but honestly, at this point, if the company has a problem with two senior engineers getting married, that's their issue to solve, not ours. The conversation with Sarah went better than expected. She congratulated them sincerely, asked a few practical questions about whether their team structure needed adjustment, and concluded that as long as they maintained professional boundaries at work, She saw no issues with the engagement. "You two have handled this situation with remarkable maturity from the start," Sarah said. "Well, after the initial chaos. But you've proven that personal relationships and professional excellence aren't mutually exclusive. I'm happy for you both." The office response was overwhelmingly positive. People who'd watched their relationship develop from rumor to reality seemed genuinely pleased to see it work out. A few people made jokes about the company needing to update its relationship policies, but there was no malice behind them. Kevin, who'd been reassigned to a different team after his tenure as team lead ended badly, stopped by Daniel's desk that afternoon. "Heard you're getting married. Congratulations." Daniel looked up, surprised. Kevin had kept his distance since the restructuring, and they'd never addressed directly what had happened. "Thanks." Kevin shifted uncomfortably. "Look, I owe you an apology. The way I handled things when you were on my team, the comments I made, the assumptions, that was unprofessional and unfair. I was threatened by Maya's competence and took it out on both of you. I'm sorry." It was the last thing Daniel expected. "I appreciate you saying that. I've been doing some thinking about how I approach leadership. Turns out being insecure and defensive doesn't actually make you a good manager." Kevin managed a weak smile. "Anyway, I'm glad things worked out for you both. You deserve it." After Kevin left, Marcus appeared at Daniel's desk. "Did Kevin just apologize to you?" "He did." "Miracles do happen. Maybe there's hope for humanity after all." Wedding planning became a project they approached with typical engineer precision. Emma created spreadsheets tracking guest lists, vendors, and timelines. Maya researched venues with the same thoroughness she applied to choosing technology stacks. Daniel found himself mostly agreeing to their decisions, content to let the two most important women in his life shape the celebration. They settled on a small ceremony in late summer at a garden venue outside the city. Immediate family, close friends, and a few colleagues. Nothing elaborate, just honest and personal. Emma would walk Maya down the aisle, the important role she'd negotiated for, and Rachel had agreed to help Emma pick out a dress for the occasion. Spring moved into early summer, and life in their shared apartment found its rhythm. Daniel watched Maya and Emma's relationship deepen, the initial caution giving way to genuine affection. Maya helped with homework without being asked, attended Emma's soccer games with enthusiasm, and maintained the fine balance between being an important adult in Emma's life without trying to replace Rachel. One evening in June, Daniel came home from a late meeting to find Maya and Emma in the kitchen, attempting to make homemade pasta from scratch. The kitchen was covered in flour, both of them were laughing, and the pasta looked questionable at best. "Don't judge our process," Maya said when she saw his expression. "We're learning." "It's going to be delicious," Emma insisted. "Probably." They ate the slightly misshapen pasta together, and it was delicious despite its appearance. Daniel realized this was what happiness looked like. Not perfect moments or grand gestures, but ordinary evenings with people you loved, building memories from flour and laughter and imperfect pasta. July brought a heat wave that had all of Portland complaining and seeking refuge in air-conditioned spaces. The apartment didn't have AC, so they spent a weekend at the coast with Daniel's parents, giving Emma a chance to swim and everyone a break from the heat. Walking on the beach early one morning, just Daniel and Maya, while Emma slept in and his parents read the newspaper, Maya brought up something that had been on her mind. "I've been thinking about after the wedding, about whether we want to have kids together." Daniel felt his heart rate pick up. They danced around this topic before but never addressed it directly. "What brought this up?" "Watching you with Emma, seeing what kind of father you are. It makes me think about whether I want that experience too, before it's too late." She paused. "I'm 26. Still have time, but not unlimited time. And I need to know if it's something you'd want or if Emma's enough for you." "Is it something you want?" "I think so. Not right away, maybe not for a few years, but eventually. The idea of having a child with you, raising them together from the beginning, that appeals to me more than I expected it would." Daniel thought about it, really thought about it. Another child would mean diapers again, sleepless nights, the exhausting early years he'd already survived once. But it would also mean experiencing fatherhood with a partner who was fully present, building a family deliberately, rather than trying to salvage one that had already fractured. "I'd want that," he said finally. He Not immediately, like you said. We should have some time just being married, and Emma should have time to adjust. But yes, eventually, I'd love to have a child with you. Maya smiled, the kind of deep, satisfied smile that came from major pieces clicking into place. Okay, then, something to work toward when we're ready. They walked in comfortable silence for a while, the ocean providing its constant soundtrack, the future feeling both exciting and manageable. The wedding approached with the kind of accelerating momentum that made days blur together. Final fittings, last vendor confirmations, family arriving from out of town. Emma practiced walking in her dress shoes, determined not to trip during her aisle walk with Maya. Rachel helped coordinate with Daniel's ex-in-laws, maintaining the cordial relationships that made co-parenting work smoothly. The night before the wedding, Daniel and Maya stayed in separate hotels at Emma's insistence. It's tradition, Emma declared. You're not supposed to see each other before the wedding. That's for the day of the wedding, not the night before, Daniel tried to explain. Close enough. We're doing this right. So Daniel spent his last night as an unmarried man in a hotel room with Emma, watching her favorite movies and talking about the big day ahead. Are you nervous? Emma asked during a quiet moment. A little. Good nervous, though. Maya's going to be really happy tomorrow. She told me she can't wait to officially be part of our family. Emma looked at him seriously. You're making the right choice, Dad. She's perfect for us. You really think so? I know so. She's smart and funny, and she treats you like you matter. That's important. Emma yawned, her excitement finally catching up with her. Plus, she lets me help cook and doesn't get mad when I ask too many questions about science stuff. Those are pretty good criteria. They're excellent criteria. I've thought about this a lot. The wedding day arrived with perfect weather, sunny and warm but not oppressively hot, a light breeze keeping things comfortable. The garden venue was exactly what they'd hoped for, intimate and beautiful without being overly formal. Daniel stood at the altar with Marcus as his best man, watching guests file in. His parents, looking proud and emotional. Rachel and David, supportive as promised. Maya's parents, still somewhat uncertain but making the effort. Colleagues from work who'd watched their relationship develop from scandal to celebration. Friends who'd provided support during the difficult months. Then the music changed, and Emma appeared at the end of the aisle in her carefully chosen dress, holding Maya's arm with solemn importance. Maya looked stunning in a simple white dress that somehow managed to be both elegant and completely her hair down and flowers woven through it. They walked forward together, Emma and Maya, the two people who'd become his whole world. When they reached the altar, Emma handed Maya off with ceremony, then took her place of honor beside them as requested. The ceremony itself was short and personal, vows they'd written themselves that focused on honesty, partnership, and building a family together. When the officiant pronounced them married, the applause was genuine and joyful. The reception that followed had the relaxed atmosphere they'd wanted. Good food, simple dancing, speeches that were heartfelt without being overly long. Emma gave a toast that somehow balanced humor and sincerity, declaring that she'd approved this marriage from the beginning and was glad everyone was finally catching up to her wisdom. Rachel approached Daniel during a quiet moment, David beside her. She's really happy, Rachel said, watching Maya dance with Emma. Your daughter, I mean. She's been telling me for months how great things are, but seeing it in person, it's real. I'm glad you're here, Daniel said honestly. This wouldn't feel complete without you. We're family, Daniel. That doesn't stop just because we're not married anymore. I want you to be happy, and I want Emma to have the best possible life. Maya clearly contributes to both those things. David extended his hand. Congratulations, man. Your daughter's pretty great, which means you must be doing something right. As evening settled in and the celebration continued, Daniel found himself on the edge of the dance floor watching the scene. Maya was showing Emma some dance move that looked ridiculous but had them both laughing. His parents were chatting with Maya's parents, finding common ground despite their differences. Friends and family mingled, celebrating not just a wedding, but the triumph of building something real against significant obstacles. Marcus appeared beside him, beer in hand. You did it, actually pulled it off. Seems like it. Remember that Monday after the storm? When the rumors started and everything went to hell? Would you have believed this is where you'd end up? Daniel thought back to those difficult months, the isolation and scrutiny, the fear that trying to do the right thing would cost them everything. Honestly, no. I thought we'd both end up leaving the company or giving up on the relationship to make the pressure stop. What changed? We did. We stopped letting other people's perceptions define what we were building. We chose to be honest even when it was uncomfortable, to fight for what we knew was real even when everyone was waiting for us to fail. That takes guts. Or stubbornness. Haven't decided which. Maya broke away from Emma and crossed to where Daniel and Marcus stood, slipping her hand into her new husband's. Your daughter is wearing me out. I'm not sure I have her energy level. No one has her energy level. It's superhuman. Emma bounded over, slightly sweaty from dancing. Can we cut the cake now? I'm starving. They cut the cake, posed for the obligatory photos, and continued celebrating as the evening deepened into night. Around 10, Emma crashed hard, falling asleep on a couch in the venue's side room with the kind of complete exhaustion that only children can achieve. I should probably get her home, Daniel said, looking at his sleeping daughter. Our home, Maya corrected, and the possessive felt right. Let me say goodbye to people, and we'll go together. They drove home as a family, Emma dozing in the back seat, the city lights of Portland welcoming them back. At the apartment, they carried Emma to her room without waking her, then collapsed onto their own bed still in their wedding clothes. We're married, Maya said wonderingly. Actually married. How does it feel? Right. It feels right. She turned to face him. I know today was about the ceremony and the celebration, but for me, the important part happened months ago, when we decided to face the hard stuff together instead of running, when we chose honesty over comfort. That's when I knew we'd make it. Daniel pulled her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo mixed with the flowers from her hair. I love you, Maya Wright. I love you too, even though you proposed to me covered in birthday party slime without a ring. Hey, you said yes anyway. That's on you. She laughed, the sound soft in the quiet of their room. Best decision I ever made. They fell asleep like that, still in their wedding clothes, exhausted and happy and together. The following months settled into a comfortable newlywed rhythm. Maya kept her name at work for professional continuity, but legally became Maya Wright, something that gave her visible satisfaction. Emma adjusted to calling Maya her stepmom when explaining their family structure to friends, though mostly she just called her Maya. Life continued its forward momentum. Work projects, family dinners, weekend adventures, the ordinary magic of building a life together. Fall arrived again, bringing with it the anniversary of that first storm, that first ride home that had changed everything. They were in bed one Friday night, rain drumming against the windows in familiar patterns, when Maya brought it up. 1 year ago tonight, you offered me a ride home. Best decision I ever made. Even with everything that happened after, the rumors, the restructuring, all the difficulty. Especially because of that, we proved something important, that real connection is worth fighting for, that integrity matters more than perception, that sometimes the hardest path is the right one. Maya was quiet for a moment. I have something to tell you. The seriousness in her tone made Daniel's heart skip. Okay, I'm pregnant. The words hung in the air, massive and transformative. Daniel's mind raced through implications, emotions, practical considerations, landing finally on pure joy. Are you sure? Took 3 tests. Pretty sure. She turned to face him, expression uncertain despite her words. I know we said we'd wait a few more years and this wasn't planned. If you're not ready... Daniel cut her off with a kiss. I'm ready. I'm so ready. We're going to have a baby. We're going to have a baby, Maya repeated, and then she was crying and laughing at the same time, relief and joy mixing together. They talked late into the night, making plans the way they always did, thinking through logistics and timing and how to tell Emma. The conversation had the same quality as all their important discussions, honest, practical, and deeply loving. Telling Emma happened over breakfast the next morning, both of them nervous about how she'd respond to the news that she'd be a big sister. So we have something important to tell you, Daniel began. Emma looked up from her cereal, immediately suspicious. Are we moving again? No, nothing like that. Maya's pregnant. You're going to have a little brother or sister. Emma's eyes went wide. She looked between them, processing, then a huge grin broke across her face. Really? I'm going to be a big sister? Really, Maya confirmed. This is amazing. I'll be so good at it. I'll teach them science and how to ride bikes and all the important stuff. She paused. When? Probably late spring. We'll know more after the doctor's appointment. Emma nodded seriously. Okay, I have some things I need to prepare. Do we have any books about being a good big sister? They spent the weekend fielding Emma's endless questions and beginning to prepare for the reality of a new baby. Rachel was surprised but supportive when Emma inevitably told her, offering practical advice and hand-me-down baby equipment. Daniel's parents were over the moon, his mother immediately starting to knit baby blankets. Maya's parents seemed to finally understand that their daughter was building the family they'd wanted for her, just on her own timeline. At work, the pregnancy announcement was met with genuine happiness from the team. Sarah sent a congratulatory note and quietly arranged for Maya to shift to slightly less demanding projects as she got further along, protecting her without making a big deal of it. Winter settled in as Maya's pregnancy progressed. She worked through morning sickness with determination, attended prenatal appointments with Daniel by her side, and continued leading her team with the same competence she'd always shown. Emma threw herself into big sister preparation with characteristic intensity, reading every book she could find and making lists of things the baby would need to know. Spring arrived with Maya very pregnant and increasingly uncomfortable. They'd found out they were having a boy, information Emma immediately used to start planning what she'd teach him. The apartment that had felt spacious when they'd moved in now felt smaller with baby furniture and supplies accumulating. We're going to need a bigger place eventually, Maya said one evening, surveying the second bedroom they'd converted to a nursery. Emma needs her space, the baby needs room to grow, and we're running out of storage. One major life change at a time, Daniel said. Let's get through having a baby first. Fair point. The baby arrived on a rainy April night, 3 days before his due date. Daniel called Rachel to come stay with Emma, then drove Maya to the hospital with steady hands, despite his racing heart. The labor was long but uncomplicated, and at 6:43 a.m., their son was born. He's perfect, Maya whispered, holding the tiny, squalling bundle. He really is, Daniel agreed, feeling the same overwhelming love he'd experienced when Emma was born, intense and immediate and transformative. They named him Connor, a name they'd both liked that didn't carry family baggage or expectations. Emma met her little brother that afternoon, staring at him with wonder and immediately declaring him the best baby she'd ever seen. He's so small, she said softly, touching his tiny hand with careful reverence. Don't worry, Connor. I'm going to teach you everything you need to know. The first months with a newborn were exactly as exhausting as Daniel remembered. Sleepless nights, constant feeding schedules, the overwhelming responsibility of keeping a tiny human alive. But there were also moments of profound joy. Maya nursing Connor while reading to Emma. Emma singing softly to her baby brother when he cried. The three of them, 4 of them now, finding their new rhythm as an expanded family. Work had given both Daniel and Maya parental leave, and they used it to establish routines and support each other through the chaos. Marcus visited with gifts and stories from the office. Rachel stopped by regularly to help and spend time with Emma, maintaining the co-parenting relationship that had always worked well. Daniel's parents came for a week, his mother cooking meals and doing laundry while they caught up on sleep. By summer, they'd found their footing. Connor was sleeping longer stretches, Maya had returned to work part-time, and Emma had settled into her role as big sister with natural competence. The apartment was definitely too small now, but they were managing. One evening in late July, almost 2 years after that first storm, Daniel found himself on the balcony again. Connor was asleep in Maya's arms, Emma was inside doing homework, and the city was quiet in that brief window between day and evening. "What are you thinking about?" Maya asked, joining him with the baby. "How far we've come. That night I offered you a ride home. I never imagined this. Any of this." "No? I thought it was just being decent to a colleague in bad weather. Didn't know I was starting something that would completely reshape my life." Maya smiled. "For better or worse?" "Definitely for better. Even the hard parts taught us something important." Connor stirred slightly, making the small noises that meant he'd wake soon if they didn't move. They went inside together, Daniel taking Emma's homework to review while Maya nursed the baby. Normal evening sounds filled the apartment, Emma asking questions about science problems, Connor's contented feeding noises, the distant hum of city traffic. Later, after both kids were asleep and Daniel and Maya had collapsed onto the couch with the exhaustion of parents everywhere, Maya brought up the subject they'd been avoiding. We really do need to find a bigger place. This apartment was perfect for the three of us, but with Connor, we're out of space. I know, I've been looking at listings. There's some good options in the same neighborhood, bigger places with yards for Emma and room for Connor to grow. You've been looking without telling me? Wanted to have options before raising it. Didn't want to stress you out with hypotheticals. He pulled up his phone, showing her the houses he'd bookmarked. What do you think? They spent the evening scrolling through listings, imagining their family in different spaces, planning for a future that felt both exciting and manageable. Eventually, they settled on 3 places to visit the following weekend, homes that could accommodate their growing family while staying close to Emma's school and their work. House hunting with a newborn and a 9-year-old proved chaotic but fun. Emma had strong opinions about each place, evaluating them based on whether she'd have space for her experiments and whether Connor's eventual room would be close to hers. Connor mostly slept through the viewings, occasionally waking to remind them he existed. They found the right house in late August, a 3-bedroom craftsman with a backyard and a basement that could become Daniel's office. It needed some work, but had good bones. And most importantly, it felt like a place where their family could thrive. This is it, Emma declared after their second viewing. Connor can have the room next to mine, and there's that big tree in the yard we can build a treehouse in later. I thought you were too sophisticated for tree houses, Daniel teased. I am, but Connor's going to need one eventually, and I should probably supervise its construction. They made an offer that week, went through the standard anxiety of negotiations and inspections, and closed in October. Moving day was less chaotic than the apartment had been. They were more experienced now, knew how to pack efficiently, had help from friends and family who'd become practiced at their relocations. The house required work, but they did it together. Daniel and Emma painted Connor's nursery a soft green. Maya organized the kitchen with the same precision she'd brought to the apartment. They converted the basement into a home office, hung family photos in the hallway, and slowly transformed the house into a home. Emma's 10th birthday came in late March, and she requested a small party at the new house rather than the big productions of previous years. Just close friends, family, and the people who mattered. They gathered in the backyard on a surprisingly sunny day, Connor toddling around under Maya's watchful eye, Emma holding court with her friends about her latest science project. Daniel stood at the edge of the celebration, watching his family. Emma growing up so fast, already showing signs of the brilliant, compassionate person she was becoming. Connor just starting to explore the world, full of curiosity and joy. Maya moving through the party with practiced ease, balancing Connor on her hip while chatting with Rachel and his mother, proof that blended families could work when everyone committed to making them work. Marcus appeared beside him, beer in hand. You did good, man. This whole thing, the family, the house, the life. You did really good. We got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You and Maya built this deliberately, survived all the obstacles, and created something solid. That's not luck. That's work and commitment and choosing each other every day. Later that evening, after the guests had left and Emma had crashed from birthday excitement, and Connor was asleep in his crib, Daniel and Maya sat on their back porch watching the sun set. Happy? Maya asked, leaning against his shoulder. Incredibly happy. You? More than I ever imagined I could be. She paused. You know what I was thinking about today? That conference room? When we were being interrogated by HR, when it felt like everything was falling apart. If someone had told me then that 2 years later we'd be married with a son and a house and this whole beautiful life, I wouldn't have believed them. We almost gave up so many times. But we didn't. We kept choosing each other, kept fighting for what we knew was real, even when it would have been easier to walk away. Maya turned to look at him. That's what I want Connor and Emma to learn from us. That good things require courage and honesty and the willingness to face difficulty rather than run from it. That's a pretty good lesson. We're pretty good teachers. They sat in comfortable silence as the evening deepened, Two people who'd found each other through chaos and built something permanent through patience and love. The house around them held the evidence of their blended family. Emma's science posters on the walls, Connor's toys scattered in the living room, photos documenting their journey from that first storm through marriage and parenthood, and all the messy, beautiful moments in between. Inside, Connor started to cry, the sound of a 1-year-old waking from a too-short nap. Maya stood to go to him, but Daniel stopped her. "I'll get him. You relax for a minute." He went upstairs to Connor's room, lifting his son from the crib and feeling that rush of love that parenthood brought. Connor settled immediately against his shoulder, thumb in his mouth, trusting and content. Through the window, Daniel could see Maya still on the porch, the Portland evening settling around her. In Emma's room, he heard music playing softly, his daughter doing homework or reading or planning her next scientific endeavor. This was his life now, not the one he'd imagined when he was younger, not the path he'd expected to take, but it was real and earned and built on honesty rather than convenience. Connor stirred against his shoulder, making the small noises that meant he wanted down to explore. Daniel set him carefully on the floor, watching him toddle toward his toys with determined concentration. "Come on, buddy," Daniel said. "Let's go find Mom and see if Emma wants to play before bedtime." They went downstairs together, Connor's small hand in his, joining the family they'd built through storms and scandals and all the ordinary moments that mattered more than either. Maya looked up as they appeared, her smile the same one that had caught his attention that first night at her apartment, honest and warm and completely his. Emma emerged from her room, drawn by the sound of her baby brother. "Can I teach Connor his colors? I made flashcards." "Sure, sweetie. Just keep it short. It's almost his bedtime." They settled in the living room together, all 4 of them, Emma patiently showing Connor cards while he mostly tried to eat them, Maya laughing at their son's determined attempts to put everything in his mouth, Daniel watching his family with contentment so profound it was almost overwhelming. This was what they'd fought for. Not perfection, not a fairy tale, but this, a real family built on choice and courage and love that had survived scrutiny and doubt to become something unshakable. They'd started with a storm and a simple act of kindness, navigated through chaos and judgment, and arrived here at this ordinary perfect evening in a house full of the people who mattered most. Outside, another storm was rolling in, the kind of late spring weather that had brought them together. But this time they faced it from inside their own home, their family complete, their foundation solid, their future bright with possibility and promise, and all the messy, beautiful complexity that came from choosing to build something real together. The rain started to fall, and Connor clapped his hands at the sound against the windows. Emma explained precipitation cycles with the confidence of someone who'd studied them extensively. Maya caught Daniel's eye across the room, and her smile said everything that needed saying. They were home. They were together. They were exactly where they were meant to be, and that was enough.